Chapter 101, Under the Banquet of the Dead. I think we still have to see if there are acquaintances. No, it's an acquaintance, Lane said to Hermione, because standing at the door like this seems a bit silly. Soon they saw a familiar ghost, Hufflepuff's fat monk. He was chatting with a knight with a sword in his head. After seeing them, the fat monk floated over and said to him, I heard Nick say that you helped him a lot at this banquet, so I want to thank you as a member of Hogwarts. The fat monk was thankful that he was about to leave, and suddenly found Ryan and Hermione staring at the ghosts on the field a bit dazedly, patting their heads and floating back and saying, I think you may not know everyone, let me introduce you a few interesting person. Having finished speaking, he brought Ryan and Hermione to the Arrow Knight who had just talked to him, and then introduced. He called Earl the Brave. And he held the stronghold for 3 days during the first Goblin Rebellion until the reinforcements arrived, but in the process of chasing when he was about to win, he was calculated by a Goblin crossbowman. Wait, I know you, Hermione said. I also introduced you specifically to the magical envoy, thinking that you were the perfect embodiment of the bravery and tenacity of the wizards at that time. Really? The night ghost subconsciously touched the sword on his head. Is my thing really well known? This is great. After all, I have lived in an abandoned castle in Wales. Not working. Then the fat monk took them to introduce several ghosts. They were involved in some major historical events during their lifetime. There are even 1 or 2 key figures in the historical events like Earl. They were also very interested in wizards like Hermione who were concerned about their great achievements in their lifetime, and began to circulate around Hermione. Hermione was also very happy because she had access to first-hand historical data at close range, and even took out papers and notebooks from her arms and recorded something. At this time, Ryan, who was left on the side, began to look around boringly. He saw a long table at the other end of the classroom, covered with black velvet tablecloth. There are dozens of neatly arranged plates on the table. Each plate is covered with a silver cover. It looks like Nick is going to surprise everyone at the end. Several ghosts stood at the table looking at the plates curiously, and were discussing why Nick had covered these plates. After all, ghost banquets have never done this before. At this moment, a figure suddenly came out from under the table. Ha! Hogwarts Devil's Head. What are you doing here? Turned out to be a Pippi ghost, and it was also the only color among all ghosts. I helped Nick do a favor, so he invited me to the party. I think you are a little boring at this banquet, so let me have some fun for you. After that, Pippi grabbed the corner of the tablecloth and seemed to want to hit everything on the ground. But just when Pippi was about to pull the tablecloth, a hoarse voice came from behind him. What? Interesting thing. Can you tell me what? The ghost of Pippi was stiff there all at once. Then he shuddered and said, Lord, I did nothing. Trust me. The blood man Barrow grabbed Pippi's neck and said in his low, hoarse voice, I finally found you. Nick, please ask me to look at you today. After all, today is his big day. He doesn't want you ruin his party. I also don't want you to shame us Hogwarts. Now, you and I will sit there over there. After he finished speaking, Barrow left with a frustrated ghost, and Nick got out of the crowd. It seems that your companion likes this party as much as you. Ryan followed Nick's finger, watching Hermione, an avatar reporter, holding a notebook and remembering something. There was a circle of ghosts around him, and each ghost looked elated. It's really interesting. Ryan's sentence is not perfunctory, because this time I saw so many ghosts, and it was helpful to observe this kind of species wandering on the edge of death to improve the level of life magic he mastered. Okay, I think it's time for me to speak on stage. I'll see you later, Nick said and floated on the stage. Nick just stood on the platform and heard a sound of hunting horns. 20 ghost horses ran out of the wall, each with a headless rider. Everyone's attention was drawn to them. These horses ran to the center of the dance floor. The lead horse rode a headless rider, and he clamped his head under his armpit. Then he jumped down immediately and raised his head high to observe the people on the field, which naturally attracted the cheers of the ghosts on the field. After seeing Nick again, he put his head around his neck and walked towards Nick and said, Nick, how are you? Is his head still hanging there? Nick took off his head, which caused another exclamation. He held his head in one hand and patted the headless knight's shoulder with one hand and laughed and said, Thank you for your nagging. Now you should not stop me from joining the headless hunter team. Patrick should be Nick's old opponent. This time he came with the goal of smashing the field. In the end, it was unfavorable for the division, but the place that could attack Nick the most before was completely cracked by Nick. After seeing a few hundred-years-old opponents deflated, Nick strode to the podium and began to speak. After Patrick was depressed for a while, he stood up and continued to chaos his old opponent. He played a headball game with other members of the Headless Hunter team, and everyone turned to watch. It seems that ghost days should be quite boring, so performance-rich sports like Headless Hunters are easily welcomed by everyone. Nick tried to get the attention of the audience, but unfortunately the dry speech was definitely not interesting to fly around. At this time, Ryan ran to the podium and whispered to Nick, Jazz, hurry up and have dinner. Yes, how did I forget this? Nick suddenly realized the gesture to the blood man Barrow under the stage. Barrow immediately lowered his head and said something to Pippi Ghost. Pippi waved his hand relentlessly, and the silver lids on the dishes on the dining table all flew up and piled on the side of the table. Soon, a smell that was very different from the smell of ordinary food filled the underground classroom. Many ghosts were attracted to the dining table. It's just that all ghosts can't figure out what's on the table, and can only stand on the table awkwardly. Lynn saw that with Hermione's encouragement, Earl of the Arrow in his head first reached out and took a large piece of meat from the roasted whole sheep in the sole state on the table and put it in his mouth. As soon as the meat entered his mouth, he saw Earl's expression solidified, and then he began to frantically put meat in his mouth. The movement here also attracted other ghosts, and soon the table was filled with ghosts coming to eat. Nick held a barrel of wine under his arm and toasted the people at the table with small glasses. Patrick discovered that no one had watched them and played awkwardly for a while, and then joined the ranks of ghosts who ate at the table. It seems that in any world, the true fragrance law cannot escape. Chapter 102, Nick's Gratitude. Lane is watching a group of ghosts robbing at the table regardless of identity. Hermione came by. She held a notebook and said, "It's a great harvest today. I know a lot of secrets I never knew before." For example, when Earl bragged about his bravery, he was exposed by a ghost next to him. The head on the ground died after hitting a crossbow on the ground. Sure enough, many historical truths can't be investigated. As Hermione happily told today's story, a cooing voice came from her belly. Hermione's face flushed immediately after hearing the sound. Ryan also felt a little hungry at this time, so he went to Nick to say goodbye. Nick had already finished his drink at this time, and stood happily on the rostrum, watching the eating ghosts around the table. Seeing Ryan pull Hermione over, he solemnly bowed to the two of them and said, "Thank you for your help. I think today is the happiest day after my death." "No need to thank. This matter is not very difficult for me. We are going upstairs to eat now, so we need to retire early and leave," Ryan told Nick. "I have been too busy these 2 days. I forgot to prepare food for you too, which is really sorry. Hurry up and eat. I think you can still get dessert when you get upstairs. Prepare for you will be placed on your bedside tomorrow morning." After speaking, Nick bowed and sent Ryan and Hermione out of the underground classroom. Ryan and Hermione hurried through the corridor and climbed the stairs. When they panted into the auditorium and sat on their seats, the main course had already been removed, and the dessert had just been served. "It's a shame you geese missed the Halloween apple pie," Ron said when he saw Ryan and Hermione sitting down while eating caramel apples. "But I still feel that attending the gathering of ghosts tonight is very rewarding. I have gained a lot of knowledge that I can't find in the books," Hermione said, picking up a piece of pumpkin cake. "Well, what's so special about ghost gatherings?" Harry asked curiously. "I think it's very interesting that the headless ghosts of the Headless Cavaliers perform tossing each other's heads immediately. At least I've never seen them before," Lane said while eating a piece of cake. "And to talk about the atmosphere, blue candles, cold temperatures and a room full of ghosts can better reflect the characteristics of the magical world of Halloween. The only problem is that there is nothing suitable for humans to eat at all," Ryan finally concluded. After filling his stomach with dessert, Ryan returned to the dormitory with a big army. When Ryan woke up the next morning, he found a thick parchment letter at the head of the bed. After opening the envelope and looking at it, Ryan discovered that Nick had sent it to the house elf at night. At the beginning of the letter, Nick said that he had asked Barrow to write the letter at the expense of the private bottle of fiery whiskey, because only ghosts in the ghost could write letters. The reason why the house elves are not allowed to write is because he thinks the content of this letter is not suitable for the principal to know. Ryan opened the envelope and pulled out the letter, and found that Nick had given a lot of gifts this time. The letter contains Hogwarts' location of several secret passages, and also tells Ryan that there is something in the response room where Hogwarts students have lost for hundreds of years, as long as they want a place to hide at the door. Turn up. At the end of the letter, he also told Ryan that a ghost had told him that he had seen a group of people sneakily carrying a few heavy boxes and hid them near the coastline in southern England nearly 200 years ago, and no one took them out afterwards. Looking at the size and weight of a box, it is probably a treasure. It seems that Christmas holidays can go to treasure hunt. Ryan thought so. In this way, Nick's gift is really rich, and I hope that it will not be a joyous occasion. In short, this time helped Ryan gain a lot. Because she is in a good mood, Ryan watched the drama staged by Harry Potter and Jidero Lockhart in today's Lockhart class, Jidero vs. Werewolf. Seriously, if Jidero is not a wizard, he can find a job in Hollywood. Because Ryan saw that Jidero was just a few words of instruction, he allowed Harry to reproduce the style of the werewolf. After all, Jidero just asked those real heroes through his words. He can restore the scene through dry language and perform a bit of reality. I have to say that Jidero is a genius in this respect. It's a pity that teaching like a teacher is obviously not enough. At least Ryan feels that he can't learn anything in such a class. So while Lockhart was fully devoted to the performance, he pulled out a lot of parchment and began to deduce the magical heritage of the Viking wizard. It is enough to learn that magic is not just learning spells. After pushing the basic runes of spells, users can try to change these magics. For an example, ordinary wizards can transform a stone into a statue at most by transforming, or further convert things between several items. But if you change to a master of transforming like Dumbledore, he can use simple transform to perform extremely complex magic. For example, in the original book, Dumbledore controlled Voldemort's magic with water in the Ministry of Magic, which is actually an extension of the simplest transformation. Can't do this naturally with Ryan's level. He now simply decomposes the Viking spell on his hand step by step according to the inheritance in his memory, and then confirms the composition of each part of the spell and the effect of each part in the spell. Finally, minor changes are being made. This work is more troublesome. It is necessary to restore all the elements of a spell, such as spells and actions, to the most original magic text, and then analyze it according to the nature of each magic text. Lane now deals with the magic of ancient Viking. This spell is more complicated than the current one, but it can make the light point leave the wand and attach to some objects. Chose this spell is the beginning of learning because it is simple enough and safe enough. Even if it fails at most, let the light flash like the camera flash or not at all. But if it is a complex spell, it will be very dangerous if it fails. For example, Luna's mother died because of this. At the climax of the Jidro stage, Ryan finally imitated the inheritance in memory to understand a variant of this spell, paying 3 times the magic power to double the time of the spell. Because of the excitement, Ryan accidentally pronounced the spell. As a result, everyone in the classroom saw a silver-white light ball flickering towards the table. This is miserable. It's a big game. Lane covered his face with his hand. Chapter 103, Data Collection. Mr. Liang, please explain why you want to do this? Lockhart looked a little unhappy. After all, it was personally unhappy to be disrupted while trying to force. I saw that you played the war werewolf too well, so I couldn't help but want to applaud, and in the end accidentally fired magic. Ryan quietly wiped a cold sweat after finishing the speech, and made a 1 in such a short time. Nonsense is not easy. I can understand your excitement when you see my heroic attitude, but I hope you won't do it again in the future. After all, there are so many classmates in the class. It's not good to disturb them to watch like this. Lockhart turned and sorted out his expression to continue the performance. Many boys gave thumbs up to Ryan's ability to lie, but some girls looked at Ryan with angry eyes. No matter where the brain powder is. After class, Ryan whispered his dissatisfaction with his homework. Who actually wrote a poem or a fart poem? What is in Lockhart's mind? Then walked into the library with a flow of people. After finishing his homework, Ryan began to look for books related to the basilisk in the bookshelf. It may be because the basilisk itself is scarce, so there are not many books related to the basilisk in the library. In addition to Where is the Magical Animal roughly introduces the basilisk, other books have only been carried by a few pens. The only gain is that a travel note of a Greek wizard states that the older the basilisk, the harder it is to deal with. But the problem is that Ryan knew about it. However, after reading the entire travelogue, Ryan noticed something interesting. According to the wizard's description, although the basilisk can communicate with the serpent, in fact, the basilisk brain is still the brain of a beast, and there is no human wisdom. This is good news. Attacking a beast is completely different from attacking a beast with an IQ. However, some things still need to be investigated on the ground. While most people were doing their homework, Ryan slipped out of the library and ran into Myrtle's bathroom. As soon as I pushed the door in, I saw Myrtle sitting on the sink. I know you, we have met a couple of days ago. But this is a women's toilet, not where you should come in, Myrtle said to Ryan after seeing Ryan entering the door. I'm here for you, Ryan said. Find me? Myrtle looked a little surprised. You know, although I am dead, there are still a lot of people talking about me behind me. No one has ever thought that the poor Myrtle is also emotional. I am not as wide-ranging as Nick and not as passionate as a fat monk. There is no Selena and Barrow have noble identities, so. Speaking of this, Myrtle fluttered violently to look at Ryan's eyes. I don't know what you are doing for me. Isn't it really to laugh at me? It has nothing to do with mocking you. But you only know this question, so I can only come to you, Ryan said sincerely, looking at Tao Jinliang's eyes. Really? Only I know? Tao Jinliang happily made a circle in the air. You ask, as long as I know, I will tell you. It may be offending, but I want to know what happened when you died. Ouch, it's terrible, she said remarkably. At this moment the whole appearance of Myrtle changed suddenly. It seems that no one has ever asked her such an honest question. It happened here. I died in this toilet. After listening to Myrtle's statement, Ryan omitted the clear episode that she was crying in the toilet after being bullied by the campus, and asked a little unwillingly, you really did not see what was attacked? Yes, I only remember seeing a pair of scary yellow eyes. My whole body seemed to be caught, and then I floated away. Then can you give me a rough description of where you saw the 2 eyes? No problem. After talking about Myrtle sitting on the toilet, Ryan turned out 2 light to represent the pair of eyes, and then moved the position of the eyes according to Myrtle's instructions. Obviously, Myrtle kept remembering what killed her. After 5 or 6 minutes after Ryan adjusted the position of the light ball again, Myrtle nodded and signaled that his eyes were looking at the position of the light ball. According to the knowledge of the snakes in the library and the eye distance of the snakes obtained this time, Ryan can confirm the size of the snakes. Ryan quickly took out the book from his bag and took note of the data. Myrtle looked at Ryan Fenn's book and asked curiously, Is this important to you? Very important, and may even be related to my life, Lane said while writing. I am honored to help you. Tao Jinyoung looked very happy. This may be the first time she received such attention. After taking notes, Lane made some sold chocolates on the spot and gave them to Myrtle as a gratitude gift. Myrtle took over the chocolate and said, "It turns out that the Nick banquet was made by you." Unfortunately, there were too many people squeezing at the table. I only ate a chicken wing. Thank you for your gift. Welcome to come again next time. After saying goodbye to Myrtle this year, Ryan found a place where no one opened a small space door leading to the world of Plants vs. Zombies and threw the notes I just took into it. These data help Ryan's previous equipment to deal with Basilisk more effectively. After doing all this, Ryan returned to the common room. Today the homework discussion group got together and did not write homework. Because tomorrow is the Quidditch match of the Gryffindor team, everyone gets together to prepare something like a banner to cheer up. The knowledge that Ryan had learned through making 100 common potions soon came into use. He formulated a magic flash textile dye that can only last for 36 hours, thanks to the raw materials provided by the Weasley brothers. This way they can make banners directly from bed sheets. After drawing the roaring lion, Hermione released a small magic on it to allow the lion to make roaring movements. "This is a little craft I learned from the fat monk, isn't it?" Hermione said to Ryan after she released the magic. "It seems that you learned a lot of good things from ghosts yesterday." "Yeah." Hermione nodded somewhat proudly. "I don't know why, most wizards ignore those ghosts. They don't even know that ghosts are also carriers of knowledge. When I chatted with them yesterday, I gained a lot of knowledge that I have never seen before, even lost. That's because your attitude touched them. Those ghosts have been floating in the world for hundreds of years. Their experience makes it easy for them to distinguish the inner thoughts of the people who speak to them. The hunger for knowledge that came out moved them, so you have gained a lot. As far as I know, wizards who can learn from ghosts are very few. It seems that I am not a nerd who can only read books," Hermione said with a sigh of relief. Chapter 104, Track House Elves. Seeing Hermione's sigh of relief because of her casual praise, Ryan asked strangely, "Can you tell me why you seem to have a heartfelt fatigue?" "In my impression, you should always be the kind full of confidence." "Because I thought of something today," Hermione said. "When you were away, Percy and I complained about his twin brothers, saying they turned the bear into a spider when Ron was 3 years old. Ron now has psychological shadows. When Ron was 5, he was almost cheated by the twins to make an unbreakable vow." "What does this mean?" "Weasley's twins are so fond of pranks now. Is it because they have been naughty until they are big?" "It's not this." Hermione rolled her eyes and said, "Don't you see from this that the wizard born in the magic family has much advantage in learning magic?" After finishing speaking, Hermione pulled her finger and began to narrate one by one. "You see, the twins are 2 years older than Ron. These things show that the twins can complete the transforming magic of turning teddy bears into spiders when they are 5 years old. You know, many students cannot master this magic perfectly after going to school. Not to mention the unbreakable oath. I learned this by reading a lot of books, and the Weasley twins knew it at the age of 7. After seeing Ryan starting to listen to her seriously, Hermione paused and said, "In addition to these, we can see from some small things how strong the wizards from the magic family. For example, Ron's spitting spell." Finally, Madame Pomfrey's solution was to use magical stimulation to make Malfoy spit it out quickly, and it could not be eliminated directly. Ginny also had a Batman spell that Professor McGonagall praised. Harry was in combat magic. He is terrible in his ability to learn. Sometimes he can even release the magic as long as he reads the narrative in the book and tries twice. Speaking of which, Hermione raised her head and looked up at Ryan's eyes and said, "If the pure blood was pressured by my family and lineage for a congenital reason, the stimulation for me is not that great. You give me the pressure is the most exciting to me." "Me?" Ryan said with some surprise. "What pressure can I put on you? Last year's final exam, I didn't even score as high as you." "Yeah. But what else am I going to do besides the exam? After all, in the wizarding world, only magic power is everything, not the exam. You have at least mastered the unique magic. I have gained a lot this time, or because of you're the reason. Otherwise, the ghosts are not willing to talk to me. And what else can I do besides nibbling on the books? How can I protect my parents in this way?" Hermione said, her eyes turned slightly red. "Is this the girl's adolescent too much pressure caused emotional out of control? I really don't know how the two original friends of Harry and Ron in the original text, plus the bad relationship, how did Hermione get through these days?" But thought about the original text this time. The basilisk wandering in the school is filled with a tense atmosphere. Plus she was still chasing stars at that time. In this case, Hermione might have no time to think about this. Ryan looked at Hermione, who was a bit emotionally depressed, comforting. "You don't have to be so nervous. Exam scores in the magic world also represent your ability level. After all, There are many practical operations, let alone you can read a lot of things quickly, and then the ability to piece together spells makes me envious. Now you think that many places are not as good as others, purely because the knowledge of the wizards is more confidential than in the world of ordinary people, so it is difficult to find knowledge that can enhance the magical ability. Treat me with luck to find someone else. It's just a book that I can't understand. Ryan told Hermione that the magic of the Heavenly Dynasty was learned from Chinese books that were found in old bookstores. After listening to Ryan's persuasion, Hermione looked much better. Ryan took the opportunity to issue an invitation. Last time, Nick told me that Hogwarts had a place that was used by students to hide things for hundreds of years. You can talk to me next time. Go there for Taobao together. Maybe there is the book you need inside. After all, speaking of the understanding of magic, Ryan felt that she was not as good as Hermione, because recently, in addition to learning the knowledge related to textbooks, all his energy has been focused on the study of life magic and the Moshan Taoist scriptures. There was no time to go through half a library like Hermione, so Ryan invited Hermione, on the one hand, to help her friends. On the other hand, I want to ask her to help check it out, so as not to miss valuable treasures among the piles of things. Hermione's mood improved completely after hearing Ryan's invitation, because she knew how difficult it was to share knowledge in the magic world. So she hugged Ryan quickly, then whispered thank you. Ryan was stunned by this sudden attack. Even if he had lived in the UK for 10 years, he was still not very accustomed to the British etiquette. After helping several first-year freshmen answer their questions, Ryan went to bed early. Tomorrow is the first Quidditch game of this grade and the first game of this year's team. So tomorrow there must be a good state. After eating early the next morning, Ryan followed everyone to the Quidditch stadium. Today is hot and humid weather, and there is even a faint sound of thunder in the distance. Gryffindor classmates looked a little nervous. After all, Slytherin changed to the Light Wheel 2001 this year. Have an absolute advantage in equipment. The game started, and the intensive training of the Gryffindor players was very effective. Difficult to play with Slytherin when equipment is backward. Then Ryan noticed that a wandering ball was chasing Harry, trying to hit it. This should be Dobby's rescue plan. Seeing here, Ryan patted Hermione and motioned her to observe Harry. After watching it for a while, Hermione was also surprised and said, "What's the matter with that roaming ball? Why only stare at Harry and hit it alone?" Then the rain started to fall, and Harry's condition was getting worse. The Weasley brothers could only follow the body ball that was flying around him like a bodyguard. "This walking ball looks hurt, and it feels like the situation last year. What should we do?" Hermione told Ryan after watching the walking ball for a while. "I have a way." After finishing, Ryan took a rune from his arms and injected it with spiritual power. Rune paper quickly turned into 1,000 paper crane, turning around Ryan 2 times on their heads and flying straight to a place. "Keep up with it." Ryan and Hermione jumped up and started tracking this 1,000 paper crane, and the house self-tracking operation now begins. Chapter 105, Hunt Down. Thousands of paper cranes flew up and down suddenly, because it rained so it didn't fly fast. Ryan and Hermione squeezed through a group of Hufflepuff students and moved from an entrance to the space under their seats. "This is an oriental tracking technique I learned." Fortunately, this time the attacker used not curse, but directly used magic to manipulate the roaming ball. At the same time, the attacker was very arrogant and did not hide his magic track. "So even if I am just a beginner now, I can use this magic to find each other's position," Ryan explained to Hermione while running. "What should I do after I find the other party? Report to the professor?" Hermione asked. Ryan bypassed a post that was in front of him, and said, "It must be too late to find a professor." Maybe Harry's head was already opened by the ball when the professor came, so we can only do it ourselves. Just let's practice after many magical fights. Today is the first actual combat. At this moment, Kian's eye suddenly stopped, and Ryan could feel that the attacker was hiding in the front corner. So Ryan stopped and reached out his right hand to pull out his wand. Hermione also took out his wand from his pocket. "Then, with your left finger, point to the front of Ryan to make a mouth shape. Here?" Ryan nodded, and then wrote with his hand on the dust behind the wooden board. "After a while, you rushed with me and saw the other person and let go of the mantra directly. Don't be psychologically stressed, because the other party obviously wants to kill our classmates." Looking at Hermione nodded to indicate that she knew. Ryan nodded slightly and rushed out. Hermione followed. Turning around the corner, Ryan saw a little monster with bat-like ears, wearing an old pillowcase, waving his hand in the air as if he was commanding something. "Except your weapon." Two red lights hit the monster one after the other, and the monster fell forward and fell to the ground. Lion stepped forward and pinched the monster by 2 steps, then pointed at him with his wand. "Say, why did you want to kill Harry?" Hermione also came from behind, and she found that the monster position could be seen through the damaged place. "Ryan, that roaming ball doesn't seem to chase Harry anymore. We didn't hit the wrong person." After speaking, Hermione also stood and looked closely at the little monster, and then said, "He seems to be the house elf," Harry said, "and he has been trying to stop Harry from going back to school." "You let it go, We asked him why he wanted to kill Harry. Okay. Ryan let go of pinching Dobby's neck, then grabbed Dobby's shoulder and asked, why do you want to kill Harry? You are friends of the great Harry Potter, but neither of you can stop me from saving Harry's life. Dobby defended. Help. Is it possible to smash Harry's head with a walking ball or let him fall from a few feet high? It's life-saving. As far as I know, the house elves are masters. Who the are you sent to assassinate Harry? Does that man have any remaining sins? Hermione pointed at Dobby angrily with her wand. Harry Potter actually has such a friend who is willing to help him. Dobby is very happy. But Dobby is going to save Harry Potter now. Goodbye. After saying, Dobby snapped his fingers, then slammed from lane. Disappeared. Isn't phantoms allowed on Hogwarts campus? How did he disappear suddenly? Hermione asked in surprise after seeing Dobby disappear. I think only human phantoms are forbidden here. Ryan asked curiously after thinking of Hermione's establishment of the SPEW plot. Aren't we listening to Harry saying that Dobby is so pitiful? Why didn't you just feel sorry for Dobby at all? Compassion. Are you crazy? Hermione turned her head and said, that is the murderer who wants to kill our classmates. Why should I have mercy on him? After speaking, Hermione glanced at the stadium through the hole. God, Dobby is attacking Harry again. We have to find and stop him quickly. Ryan prepared 1,000 paper cranes again. Dobby's casting trajectory is still very obvious. It seems that he will not hide this. It's just that the location shown this time was actually on an unmanned tower opposite the stadium. After Ryan and Hermione rushed to the tower breathlessly, Ryan hit Dobby with a coma spell. Dobby looked shaky, but he snapped his fingers when he fell to the ground and disappeared. Oh, Ryan patted the thigh with regret. However, the coma spell had some effect. It took 5 or 6 minutes to walk the ball before it was kept under control. Ryan, who had just panted, they could only continue to track. Just halfway, Hermione held Ryan. No more chasing. The game is over. Lynn also saw the roaming ball falling into the crowd and then flying again. When the roaming ball was about to fall, it was shattered by a spell. Came to the edge of the field. They just saw Ginny came out of the crowd. From Ginny's mouth, Ryan and Hermione knew what had just happened. Because the ball is good and bad, so Harry desperately chases the golden snitch alone. In the end he succeeded, but he fell to the ground in order to avoid the ball. You read a book www.uukanzu.com and several teeth were dropped. After the game, Lockhart wanted to treat Harry's teeth, but the wandering ball rushed down. He wanted to show his magic power to solve the roaming ball, but after the magic was released, it had no effect. The roaming ball directly hit his shoulder blade. Finally, Mrs. Hyochi solved the problem. Now they are sent to the school hospital together. Ryan also received a notice at this time, and he obtained 5 offset points. After Ryan and Hermione quickly rushed to the school hospital, they found that the ward was noisy, and a group of girls were talking about Lockhart's bed, and Harry was accompanied by Ron and Colin. What are you doing? Why haven't you seen the two of you just now? Ron asked angrily when they saw Ryan coming over. Lynn looked around and found that Madame Pomfrey was busy driving the twittering girls around Lockhart. No one noticed it. So quickly explain what they just did. After listening to Ryan's narration, Harry said thoughtfully, Dobby always wanted me to leave the school and said that there will be dangerous things happening at the school. But this year it was clear that there was nothing, and the only danger he caused was. Does this mean that someone does not want me to stay in the school? After all, the school is protected by Professor Dumbledore. No one can hurt me. Looking at Harry, whose thoughts were completely deviated, Ryan couldn't help but pray for Dobby silently, hoping that he wouldn't be cast in a psychological shadow by the Savior. Finally, when the Gryffindor team members came in, they were kicked out of the door by Madame Pomfrey together with the team members. Because Harry will grow 6 teeth today, the process will be a bit painful. Therefore, it is best to stay in the school hospital for one night, and the next morning Mrs. Pangful can just help him to fix his teeth. Chapter 106, Hagrid's Past. Early in the morning the next day, Harry told Ryan that they had visited Dobby again last night. Still said to save him, but did not say why he should be saved. It seems that the unlucky Harry is going to spend time with Dobby, and Ryan makes a helpless expression. After class at noon, Lane carried his father's new book to the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Wolf was already waiting for him there. In addition to the last book, there was a tightly sealed box made of wood in the bag on Wolf's back. What is this? Ryan asked curiously. Thank you for the book you gave me. This is a mature wild mandrake that I have collected. Now as a gift for you. This box is made by Betty. As long as you don't open the mandrake, you can sleep in it. Live a year inside. Wolf's face showed a pure smile. Looking at this smile, Ryan knew he could not refuse his good intentions. But this gift is too precious, and he will be uneasy in conscience if he takes it away directly. So Ryan touched it in his pocket of space, took out a finger-sized pendant and handed it to Wolf. This pendant was made by Ryan when he practiced Moshan Taoist Sutra a while ago. What is this? Can I feel the power of magic? Wolf asked after taking the pendant from Ryan's hand with his claws. This is a gift for you. Thank you for helping me to send messages to Betty and them recently. The material exchange between Ryan and Betty was passed through Wolf. After all, the level of Ryan cannot pass the real thing through the Emerald Dream. Wolf's face showed a recognized look, and after seeing it, Ryan said, This is the amulet I made with the fangs and venom of the eight-eyed giant spider. It can form a majority of magic within 10 meters of you. Undetectable green smoke. The smoke can be used 3 times a day for 1 minute at a time. It sounds very useful, and it's good for saving lives. Thank you. I went back and asked the horseman to make a chain for me to hang this around my neck. After Wolf thanked Ryan, he walked back to the Forbidden Forest with a new book and amulet. Said goodbye to Wolf, Lane was going back. Suddenly, Harry and Ron were standing at the door of Hagrid's hut. What are you doing here? Ryan asked them curiously. We listened to the senior classmates saying that there have been cryings in the cabin for the past 2 days. We were a little worried about Hagrid, so let's take a look. Harry replied. What's the matter with a 60-year-old man like Hagrid crying for days? Lane was curious. So he said to Harry, let me visit him too. After all, he is a good person. Harry walked up the stairs and knocked on the door a few times. The door opened. Hagrid stood with red eyes and a little alcohol on his face. What are you guys doing here with me? I heard that you have been feeling uncomfortable in these 2 days, so I came to see you. Harry said. Okay, come in quickly. I think you can come in and have a cup of tea. After talking, Hagrid invited 3 people into the house. On the table was a bottle of fiery whiskey that had been drunk in half. After receiving the whiskey in the cupboard, he brought out a plate of snacks and a pot of black tea from the fireplace. What happened? Maybe we can help you. Ryan asked the black tea that Hagrid had received. After listening to Ryan's question, Hagrid seemed to be touched with tears, and tears came out again. My Aragog is dead. Linen froze after hearing this sentence, but fortunately no one found it. Then Harry asked, Aragog, who is that? Why have you never heard you say that? He is an eight-eyed giant spider, but I never wanted to let others know about his existence before, so I never told you. I don't want us to know that he exists. Why? Ryan asked curiously. Because the eight-eyed giant spider is a creature native to Southeast Asia, the favorite food is humans. Although it can speak but cannot communicate, it has always been considered a dangerous black magic creature. Ron was beside speaking. How do you know so clearly? Harry asked, looking back at Ron. I hate spiders, so I remember these magical creatures related to spiders. Luo said with an ugly face. What happened? Ryan asked curiously. Because Betty had dealt with all eight-eyed giant spider bodies, Hagrid knew how Aragog was dead. I will visit Aragog every once in a while, but when I went to see it yesterday, there was no giant spider there. In the end, I found traces of fire in the cave where they spawned, and this got half of Gog's head. It is likely that a wizard killed him. After talking, Hagrid wiped tears and pointed to a piece of coke on the fireplace. Ron quietly moved back, and Ryan and Harry stepped forward to look at it for a long time, only to find that it was indeed the head of half an insect, only to be scorched. Ryan thought that this might be the part of the explosion that was not discovered by Betty, and they stayed at the scene. Why are you raising this dangerous species? Ryan asked Hagrid when Ryan and Harry looked at the coke. No. He is not dangerous. I even found him a wife to let them thrive in the Forbidden Forest. When I brought him to Hogwarts that year, he was only as big as a teacup and was not dangerous at all. Later someone framed him as having something to do with the death of a girl. I can only let him escape to the Forbidden Forest. Because of this, I was expelled from school. Thanks to Dumbledore's help, I can stay in school. Probably because he drank some wine. Hagrid talked about his past under the influence of alcohol. Is the dead girl the crying Myrtle? Ryan asked suddenly. How do you know? Hagrid asked in surprise. Because I attended Nick's Geekan party. There was only one ghost wearing Hogwarts uniform. I was curious and asked her a lot of things. I didn't kill her, really didn't. Hagrid waved his hand excitedly. Harry and Ron also proved that Hagrid was a good person and would not kill. I didn't say Hagrid was the murderer. Ryan couldn't help crying. Myrtle said she died after being seen with big yellow eyes. The eight-eyed giant spider is highly toxic and good at attacking, but it is certainly impossible to see dead people with his eyes, let alone the eight-eyed giant spider. There are 4 big eyes, and Myrtle only sees 2 eyes. So, Ryan turned to Hagrid. I think you were there to protect Aragog so that no one knew about his existence, so the lack of evidence also caused you to be wronged for decades. Now that Aragog is gone, then you can tell Professor Dumbledore this matter well and let him wash off your convictions. At least you will be able to use magic in the future. Chapter 107. Christmas is coming. Aragog is my friend. I was not so good just after he died, Hagrid said sadly. Hagrid, the dead are dead, but those who are alive will continue to live. I think Aragog will be happy in paradise if he knows he can help you. Besides, I think Dumbledore put you are still taking a lot of risks to stay. At least after you clear your grievances, you can avoid someone thinking that Dumbledore is hiding the criminal. Ryan patted Hagrid on the back and advised him. You're right. I shouldn't just look at myself. Dumbledore was a good person who helped me a lot. I can't trouble him anymore, Hagrid said solemnly after thinking about it. After drinking tea for a while, Ryan and Hagrid said goodbye. When they went out, everyone's pocket was filled with Hagrid's homemade milk candy. The big spider that eats people. I really don't know why Hagrid keeps those things. Fortunately, He is dead now, Ron commented on the way. It's not okay to say that. After all, Hagrid is our friend. Harry frowned and said, it has nothing to do with whether Hagrid is a friend. Ryan said, as far as I know, Ron's twin brothers ran to the Forbidden Forest to take risks in the 2nd grade. I think there are not many such adventurous students. But think about it. What if they encounter these 8-eyed giant spiders? So I think it is also a good thing that the 8-eyed giant spiders disappear from the Forbidden Forest. Right, Harry said silently for a while. Who said you can kill so many spiders in one go? This issue triggered a discussion among 3 people. Finally, after Ryan's efforts crooked downstairs, Harry and Ron agreed that a passing fire dragon had killed the spider. The reason is that Hagrid said that many traces of fire were found, and if it is a black wizard, they will not give up expensive venom and take the fire to kill the giant spider. The days after were calm, but a week before Christmas, an investigation team composed of members of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement of the Ministry of Magic came to Hogwarts. They first went to Hagrid's hut and Myrtle's bathroom to make an inquiry, and finally went to the principal's office. Classmates are privately talking about guessing what these people are doing, but they didn't guess until those people left. The notice posted in the school 2 days later lifted everyone's doubts. The notice stated that Hagrid had been banned from using magic because of a major suspect in a murder case. It is now found that he was innocent in the murder case, and the Ministry of Magic at that time had a misjudgment. The efficiency of the Ministry of Magic is very high, which is completely different from the situation where the original Harry encountered a Dementor in the 4th grade. Ryan thought it might be because Dumbledore knew through his diary and memories that it was Voldemort who had reported Hagrid that year. Plus now Hagrid has found real evidence. The remains of the 8-eyed giant spider, and witnesses, Myrtle. Unlike the 5th grade of the original book, Dumbledore's prestige is high now, and the Ministry of Magic must respect Dumbledore. And the person who caused the wrong judgment has nothing to do with the current magic, and even most of them have passed away. Such a reversal will not affect the authority of the Ministry of Magic, and even if properly propagated, it can create an image of the Ministry of Magic that is just right and changes when you know the wrong thing. So the Ministry of Magic is naturally a green light on this matter. After seeing the notice, Ryan and Hermione took the time to congratulate Hagrid. Ryan and Hagrid have a good relationship. After all, a good person with a simple personality is willing to be close. Looking at Hagrid's happy smile and the mental outlook as if he was 10 years younger, Ryan suddenly felt that it was a good thing to kill Aragog. After all, the 8-eyed giant spider brought great trouble to Hagrid when the Forbidden Forest was alive. But all the problems were solved once it died. A few days later, the 2nd week of December, Professor McGonagall came to collect the list of classmates who had stayed in school for Christmas. Ryan signed on the list, because his parents said he would go skiing in the Austrian Alps to spend the 15th anniversary of his marriage. Ryan felt that he still shouldn't be a light bulb. It seems that searching for the treasure that Nick said can only go in the summer vacation, Ryan has some regrets. However, Dave just informed him that everything he needed was ready before Christmas, and Ryan felt that he could take advantage of fewer people in the school to get rid of the snake in the back room. In the next few days, Ryan went to Hagrid to help him master some simple magic spells, and by the way, he showed his cooking skills when he missed meals, at least better than Hagrid. The assassin inherited everything, including cooking in the wild, traditional Chinese medicine. There is also medicinal cooking. With his cooking skills, Lane made an excuse to make something of his hometown taste. It took 4 or 5 roosters from Hagrid to be kept in Wanji grocery store. Finally, the semester was over, and the silence like the snow on the ground covered the whole castle. Ryan found that Gryffindor left many classmates. In addition to the Harry who must be left every year, there are several Weasley brothers, because this year the Weasleys are going to Egypt to see Bill, but the sensible they decided not to follow to avoid financial pressure on the family. The dawn of Christmas is coming, the weather is cold, and it is white and white. Ryan got up early that day, the dormitory was empty, and the roommates had all gone home for Christmas. After getting out of bed, Ryan found that the gift had been placed on the floor at the head of the bed. The parents gave a Swarovski crystal ball with a postcard from Salzburg. Harry sent a copy of the Encyclopedia of Common Magic, and the Weasley twins gave a large box of candy, but Ryan planned to figure out what this was before eating, and he suspected that it was a Weasley brothers test. Ron sent another 101 curses at home. Isn't he a nerd in the eyes of Harry and Ron? Ryan thought. Hagrid's gift is very unique. It is a large piece of fudge. After Ryan learned that Harry and Ron had also received the same gift, he knew that Hagrid must have made a big pot in one breath and distributed it to friends. The most valuable gift came from Hermione, which was a metamorphosis note from Professor McGonagall when she copied it from Professor McGonagall. Sure enough, the top students will receive preferential treatment from professors. Fortunately, Ryan sent a handwritten copy of Professor Sprout's herbal medicine this time, and finally it was not rude. At Hogwarts Christmas dinner, everyone ate with relish. Because there are few people staying in school, the empty auditorium looks more magnificent. Not only are there dozens of silver frost-covered Christmas trees, and thick ribbons of mistletoe and holly crisscrossed on the ceiling, but also enchanted snow, warm and dry, gently falling from the ceiling. Professors were also very happy. Dumbledore led them to sing some of his favorite Christmas carols. After Hagrid poured cup after cup of custard, his voice became louder and louder. Percy didn't notice that Fred had enchanted him, and turned the words on his commander's badge into stupid, and asked silly what everyone was laughing. Draco mocked Harry every day, and then was sent back. Everyone is very happy. Lean eats as much as possible, because there is a big consumption exercise waiting for him at night. Chapter 108. Enter the back room. When the Christmas dinner was almost over, Lane had to admit that although his mother's food was delicious, the house elves would be better than humans in craftsmanship. At least at this important banquet, the food is better than one visit to a Michelin star restaurant with parents. After leaving the hall, Ryan quickly returned to his dormitory and went to bed after reading a book for half an hour, and set the alarm clock to 2 in the morning. Fortunately, my roommates are all home for the holidays. The alarm clock will not disturb others. After going to bed, because of the excitement, Ryan couldn't sleep a bit, but fortunately, now he habitually runs the mosh iron shanking method before going to bed. After running for a week, he finally fell into a deep sleep. At 2 in the morning, the alarm sounded on time. Ryan got up from the bed and put the assassin outfit on him. After checking that everything was there, he left the bedroom in his school uniform robe. After leaving the common room, Lane discovered that Christmas Hogwarts was exceptionally quiet. It may be that most of the students are not in school, and the students who stay in school are tired of playing again. There was no one in the corridor quietly. After successfully arriving at Myrtle's bathroom, Ryan found that Myrtle was not here, probably because she went to play on Christmas. At the last Nick Halloween party, he knew that the ghosts also had their own entertainment. Ryan walked to the sink and confirmed that there was indeed a faucet with no water, and there was a relief snake on the side. Is here. The last time I watched the official website, he said that the Victorian Hogwarts transformation involved the people of the Gunter family. He changed the entrance of the secret room to the current position, using the sink as a cover. Now it seems that this should be true. After all, the toilet and faucet cannot be found when the school was established, and even Slytherin, even a black wizard, would not be perverted to set up a secret room entrance in the female toilet. This can only be modified by future generations. Fortunately, in the world of Mr. Zombie, he obtained the inheritance of the snake language. Ryan spoke to the wash basin in snake language. The faucet gave off a dazzling white light and began to spin rapidly. Then the pool also moved. Finally, the pool of sight disappeared, revealing a thick water pipe, enough for an adult to get in. After putting a shock-absorbing spell on himself, Lane got into the pipe. Shock-absorbing mantra is one of Lane's most skilled spells. After all, it can make a leap of faith. After jumping off the pipe, Ryan felt as if he had rushed into a dirty and endless pipe. He could see that there were many pipes diverging in all directions, but none were as thick as the one he is now. The pipe twists and turns, winding around and around, with a steep all the way down. And these twists and turns also caused Ryan to hit the corner from time to time. He felt that he might have gone deep into the ground. Finally, the pipeline became horizontal again. With the help of shock absorber, Ryan stood firmly at the exit of the pipeline. Here is a huge stone tunnel. The ground is covered with mud. He felt the humid environment around him, and felt that he might be under the Black Lake now. The tunnel was quiet and silent, and Ryan took out a lantern grass to take care of herself. There were no other sounds in this place, only the occasional clicking sound when stepping on something while walking. Lynn put the lantern grass close to the ground, and found the bones of small animals everywhere on the ground. But this should not be left by the basilisk. After all, think about the volume of the basilisk. The energy gained by eating this small animal is not as large as the energy consumed when hunting. After turning a corner, Lane found a long object with a length of 6 or 7 meters on the ground and stopped there motionlessly. After slowly approaching, he discovered that this was a very bright green snake skin. At a glance I knew that this should be a viper. The snakeskin was coiled on the ground. It seemed that the snake had been peeling for some time. In this environment where the moist air does not flow, there is a thin layer of ash on a snake's skin. This kind of good thing can't be let go. Ryan opened the door of the Wanji grocery store and put the snakeskin into it. Fortunately, this thing is not heavy. After collecting the snakeskin, Lane continued to move forward. The road ahead was winding, and he could only turn one corner after the other. I have to say that the designer of this tunnel is a psychological master, because the winding tunnel in this dark environment will make people walking here always worry that there will be monsters waiting for you when you turn around. After turning another corner, the front is no longer a black tunnel in the same way. A wall stood at the end of the tunnel with 2 snakes intertwined above it. Their eyes are made of huge, shiny emeralds. Lane walked to the wall and observed carefully, and finally found that these emeralds were a part of the magical institution of this place. So he can only give up the plan to pry the gem open. Lane said again in snake language. The 2 snakes separated, and the wall cracked with a big mouth, which became bigger and bigger. Finally the wall slowly slipped to the sides and disappeared. Ryan rearranged his clothes again, threw the robe that was a bit of a hindrance into the space bag, and then walked in carefully. After entering the Chamber of Secrets, Ryan discovered that it was a long room after casting a magical detection to confirm that the basilisk had not yet come out. Ryan opened the door handle of the Wanji grocery store and kept it there. The cage was taken out. After preparing, Ryan began to look at this room. The ceiling of the room was high, supported by many stone columns engraved with entangled serpents, casting shadows on the ground. This house is not completely dark as imagined, but a faint green light. Looking down the light source, the top of the chamber was inlaid with many transparent crystals, and through the crystal line, the bottom of the black lake could be seen. Some fluorescent plants at the bottom of the lake bring light to the chamber through the crystal. It is a good thing to have a light source in the back room. After all, the basilisk can judge the position of the opponent by smell and sound, but Ryan is now difficult to fight by means of detection other than vision. After walking to the end of the room, Ryan saw a statue as tall as the room itself, standing close to the wall. Looked up to see that the statue had an old face and a sparse beard hanging from the chin to the feet. Lane saw the old and tired old Slytherin from this sculpture. It seems that it was said that Slytherin was not in harmony with the other three founders. After many quarrels, it was true that he ran away. At least from this statue, it can be seen that Slytherin's state in his later years is indeed not good. But sympathy. Slytherin's pets did start to threaten school students. It even killed a student 50 years ago. As we all know, magical creatures are an indispensable part of the magic world and have an important position in the magic world. It's a terrible act to kill magical creatures. But the artificial killing of creatures crossed the bottom line, which is the main reason why Ryan came here to hunt the basilisk. Chapter 109, Backroom Preparation. After exploring the secret room, Lane opened the space door leading to the world of Plants vs. Zombies and drilled into it. With the help of robots, the city was built very quickly. The fortress that was only planned on the drawing last time was almost built. Ryan found Kenway, who had just returned from the open sea for vacation. Good afternoon, Kenway. You look good now. I have something to do with Dave now. Can you tell me where he is? I heard that the spider you sent last time gave Dave a great inspiration. These days he has been in the laboratory all day and he doesn't know what he is doing. But he has told me that when you ask him for something, let me take you past. After talking, Kenway put down his coffee cup and led Ryan to the warehouse. While walking, he said to Ryan, I think you are wearing this assassin uniform, at least better than the last black robe. Talking, the two came to the entrance of the underground warehouse. After showing the metal plate of their personal identity, the warehouse guard opened a heavy door for them. After stepping into the warehouse, Kenway opened the innermost warehouse door. Ryan saw the shelves filled with what he wanted. It seems that you are dealing with a big guy now. I will only tell you a piece of advice, that is, the big guy's life is often very strong, and don't hurry up before confirming its death. S waved his hand and turned away, while smoothly bringing it to the warehouse door. Is a very good piece of advice. Ryan began to count these prepared weapons after making a silent note. These weapons are divided into two types, all controlled by a clockwork-powered pocket mechanical differential machine. This was strongly requested by Ryan, because he was worried that the use of electricity might fail in Hogwarts. One weapon is 10 weapon stations, each of which has 3 whaling guns in parallel. These whaling guns are single-strike weapons, and explosive darts for whaling are launched through gunpowder. Thankfully, hot weapons can be used in Hogwarts. Because Ryan found in the school history that Pippi used to fire a gun in the castle in the 19th century. Another weapon is a cleverly designed steel crossbow that can fire 5 javelins with explosive heads in a row. It's just that this kind of thing is more difficult to make, so there are only 5. All weapons are controlled by differential machines, and Ryan sets that these weapons will pour firepower in a predetermined direction. Finally is a piece of thin copper plate, with a pattern engraved on it. The groove of the pattern is inlaid with thin silver wire, and the copper plate is numbered for easy positioning. These copper plates and silver wires were incorporated into a lot of sunlight crystals when the raw materials were initially smelted. This was a new discovery in the world of Plants vs. Zombies. At that time, workers found that adding sunlight crystals to the metal raw materials smelting process can effectively shorten the smelting time. Lane last battled with the 8-eyed giant spider, and found that there was a positive energy reflection in some patched places on the Gatling gun. After inquiry, he discovered the existence of this metal. So they specified that these things they need must be made from this newly smelted metal. That's why it took a few months for these few things, because the world of Plants vs. Zombies now generally recycles old metals to make items after simple processing. If you want this new metal, you need to customize it separately, and the natural manufacturing speed is not so fast. After checking the supplies, Lane opened the space door leading to the secret room and then pushed these things into the secret room with a trolley, and then began to arrange. He first took out the copper plate, placed the copper plate at each node position according to the predetermined orientation, and finally formed a normal array. Then take a bottle of medicament from the space bag and put a few drops on each copper plate. This potion is made from the blood of the 8-eyed giant spider. In order to balance the yin and yang, Ryan melted into the tail hair of several unicorns. The final finished medicine is a good magic conductor. As the medicine dripped, The copper plate absorbed the medicine as if it were alive. After the medicine was completely absorbed by the copper plate, the silver wire inlaid on the copper plate gave out a faint glow. Finally, Ryan drew a magic circle on the ground with a brush dipped in the potion, connecting all the copper plates together to form a hole. After the last stroke, the circle burst out with a strong white light, and then all the metal plates turned into liquid and flowed along the previously drawn pattern on the ground. Finally, in front of the statue formed a large circle. After the light dimmed, Ryan walked to the center of the circle and found that the metal plates that had just been melted were turned into wires and embedded on the floor of the secret room, forming the current circle with white light. He popped the sleeve sword and scratched his finger to drip blood on the array of eyes, so that he could control the already set demon array. This magic array came from the content of Moshan Dojing. In the past, before the end of the Dharma era, this was one of several magic circles used by the Moshan school to capture large monsters. Compared with other methods, the biggest advantage of this method is that it requires only one person to operate, and the operator's repair requirements are not high. But in history, this circle has been used very few times. On the one hand, this method cannot be moved after the formation of the formation. It is not as flexible as a few people after the formation of the formation. On the other hand, ancient copper and silver were money, and the consumption of the magic circle was enough to invite the strong to take action. At that time, not many people were willing to lose money to do such things. Is just for Ryan. A circle that can be used by one person and is not very demanding for users is his favorite. The silver and copper he consumed were not so precious to him. The outlet of the basilisk is the one. The circle is used to block the door. It is not a problem to be unable to move. After Ryan was able to control the magic circle completely, the magic circle converged all the light and breath. Make this floor look the same as before. After the most important formation was completed, Lane arranged the 15 weapon stations according to the optimal plan calculated by everyone in the previous Plants vs. Zombies world. Then embed the spells related to the armor that were drawn on the spider carapace in advance, and leave them in the empty slots on the arrow during the production. These spells are the reason why Ryan does not choose firearms, because he is not sure to condense so many runes on a small warhead, let alone the use environment of the bullet is far worse than the arrow. It is likely that high temperature and high speed will destroy magic on the warhead. Finally, Ryan fired the hook on his left arm to the side of a post, where a cage with a rooster was also placed. In this way, after opening the basilisk into and out of the hole, he can get away from the danger at the fastest speed and use that to weaken the basilisk as soon as possible. Chapter 110, Basilisk. In Slytherin's secret room, the green glare penetrated through the crystal in the ceiling. In front of the Slytherin statue, a low figure stood there, surrounded by a dozen strange machines with the height of one person. The room was quiet, only the occasional dripping sound and the sound of gears turning. After all the preparations were completed, Lane took a few deep breaths to adjust his physical condition. Afterwards, he read out the narcissistic opening code filled with narcissism. Speak to me, Slytherin, the greatest of the 4 giants at Hogwarts. As soon as the words fell, Slytherin's huge stone face moved. The longer his mouth was, the bigger it turned into a huge black hole. A rustling sound came from the black hole, as if there was something to crawl out of. Ryan released a floating spell to himself and tightened the hook of his left arm. Then the whole person was taken to the back of a statue by the hook. After lifting the floating spell, Ryan grasped the black cloth on the cage and sensed the position of the basilisk through the magic circle. The movement of the basilisk is the same as that of ordinary snakes. When it swims out of the hole and starts to stop and spit out the snake letter to detect the surrounding environment, Ryan started. He activated the magic circle on the floor, and the magic circle gave off golden light, forming one golden circle after another on the basilisk. At the same time, Ryan opened the black cloth covering the cage, and the roosters in the cage cried when they saw the light. The basilisk was obviously blinded by their sudden attack. After all, this is the first time it has responded to the call after 50 years of sleep. I thought I would welcome a new Slytherin descendant and complete its mission under the command of the descendant, but I did not expect to be hit by a storm as soon as I went out. Lee nudges the spiritual power in the body to twist the head of the monster to a predetermined position through the golden circle around the monster. Fortunately, the basilisk was in a state of confusion due to the sudden attack and the roar of the rooster. Ryan felt that the pressure from the circle was not very great. After twisting the head of the basilisk to the designated position, Ryan shouted, "Launch!" After receiving the voice command, those weapons started to fire crossbow arrows in the predetermined direction. Then Ryan felt that the pressure from the circle increased sharply. After the intensive explosion sounded, Ryan pulled out a mirror from his arms and pierced the stone pillar to start to check the status of the basilisk. The results of the investigation are mixed. The good news is that 2/3 of the crossbow arrows successfully hit the target and exploded in the body of the basilisk, especially when there were a lot of wounds on the head that was the focus of attention. There was a terrible empty space when it went up, and black blood came out of it. The snakes were also wounded in large and small places, and bones could be seen in some places. The scales also flake off a lot, exposing the flesh below. But the bad news is that the basilisk is still alive, and after being irritated, it exploded. Lane saw cracks in the aperture that had restrained the basilisk and then cracked at the same time. The basilisk had already exceeded the upper limit of the power of the restrained circle at this time, and was completely destroyed after the last flash of the circle. After breaking away from the bound aperture, the angry basilisk made a creepy hiss and rushed towards Ryan's location. It is a terrible thing to upgrade the enemy in front of you. After all, the experience of playing online games to open up Wasteland tells Ryan that it is very easy to destroy the group once this unplanned situation is encountered. Lost both eyes and suffered minor injuries, a condition that is fatal to most creatures. Although snakes generally do not rely on the eyes to explore the surroundings, the loss of sight and the strongest weapon is still an unacceptable hit for the basilisk. Even most of the time, the basilisk will go to sleep under the influence of Slytherin magic, but this does not mean that it likes to be motionless like a stone. Ryan's attack greatly affected his ability to move, which made Raspberry's simple brain mark Ryan as an endless enemy. So after judging the position of Ryan, the basilisk ignored the roar of a rooster beside him that made him hate. Rushed directly to Ryan. Seeing a giant snake rushing towards himself, Ryan hooked the raised pattern on the upper part of the opposite stone pillar with a hook, and then swung it by force. The basilisk may have caused a balance problem due to the attack on its head. After a loud bang, it hit the stone column with one head. The stone pillar was directly blocked by the waist, and the basilisk was castigated and broke a pillar until it stopped under the third pillar. Ryan looked at the rising smoke and swallowed a little after fear. If he runs slower, it is estimated to be minced meat now. The smoke dissipated, and the body of the basilisk appeared again, and more scales were peeled off than before. The fragmented rock rubbed against the body of the basilisk to create more wounds. Powder-crushed bones. Ryan pointed his wand at the remnant of the pillar on the head of the basilisk that was connected to the ceiling. The basilisk quickly dodged after hearing the movement, but the wounds and the huge size of the body caused it to not completely flash off. The stone hit its tail, and it pulled the tail out of the stone. However, Ryan saw a large number of scales flaking and cracking on the tail of the basilisk, and even slightly deformed. It seems that the damage to the basilisk is not small this time. The screaming snake began to breathe violently, and a part of the green gas also spewed out from the mouth of the snake. Ryan felt faint from the distance. Is bad and poisonous. Ryan thought that he took a poison escape symbol from his pocket and slapped it on his body. Then he took out a tube of broad-spectrum anti-poison agent made by Mrs. Pomfrey's hand while dispensing medicine, biting the cork and pouring it down. Thanks to Madame Pomfrey, who only needs excellent potions. These good potions were given to Ryan as defective products, and they are just right now. Sure enough, the things left by the Big Four are not to be underestimated. At least, no matter whether it is the novels read in the previous life or the materials checked in this life, there is no saying that the basilisk will spray poison gas. Fortunately, I used to do everything before every adventure, carrying a variety of potions and spells, otherwise it is likely to roll over here. But then again, just smelling a trace of poisonous gas at such a distance can cause Ryan's strengthened body to feel dizzy, which means that once the snake bites, then Ryan hangs up is a high probability event because there is no antidote to him that can directly fight against snake venom. At this time, Ryan secretly rejoiced that when the basilisk just came out, the firepower was exhausted and hit the basilisk by surprise. Otherwise, the half-damaged monsters are so powerful now. If they are completely monsters, Ryan feels that he should stop talking about it, and it may be very difficult even to escape successfully. Now that after depriving the basilisk of its most dangerous immortality and most of its perception and causing a lot of damage, Ryan feels confident that he can kill it. Chapter 111, Kill Snake. The snake on the ground seemed to wake up after a pause, shook his head, and began to detect the smell of the air in the snake letter. After spitting out the snake letter several times, the basilisk seemed to find something. Turn his head to the column where Ryan is located, then stretch his upper body high into the air and look at Ryan with two empty eye sockets that are constantly pouring black blood. Lane looked at the basilisk and felt something was amiss, and at the same time felt familiar. Recalling a scene in the animal world I saw, Ryan slammed the hook onto the side stud, then tightened the rope and pulled himself over. Fortunately, this response was timely. While he had just left his current position, the basilisk opened his mouth violently, and then two jets of black venom shot at Ryan's previous location. After the venom touched the head of the stone pillar, the part that touched the venom began to bubble rapidly, accompanied by a hissing sound. In the end, most of the stigmas were eroded at a rate visible to the naked eye. Is this venom or hydrochloric acid? Ryan couldn't help feeling scalp numb when he saw this scene. Are things in the magic world so overspec? If this thing splashes on your body, it may take less than a minute, and the whole person will completely turn into a pool of liquid. Seeing that the basilisk didn't hit it and started to confess and investigate, Ryan knew that the basilisk could not go on like this. So he used the hook to swing past the snake, and pointed to a pocket in his waist and shouted "Waddy Wassy." Several cherry bombs flew towards the head of the basilisk like a bullet, and exploded after hitting the basilisk. Ryan clearly saw half a snake letter about the size of his arm blown up. As Ryan fired the cherry bomb, The basilisk also pulled his tail sideways towards Ryan. Ryan could barely change direction in the air. Fortunately, the basilisk tail was hard hit before and was not very flexible, so this time he took a chance. Ryan dangerously avoided the basilisk's tail. When the big wounded tail ran across the air in front of Lane, Lane could smell the sweet smell of poisonous blood. Fortunately, the previous protective measures still exist, and Ryan has not been hurt by these poisonous gases. Because Ryan's attack completely deprived the basilisk of his perception of the outside world, he found that the basilisk entered a state of madness. It did not know where the enemy was, but knew that the enemy was still alive. Even before it loses its perception, he can feel that its enemies have not been injured at all. Anger turned the basilisk into a beast without a brain. Although its attack was still sharp, the threat was greatly reduced. The basilisk began to tumbling on the ground, emitting poison gas everywhere. Fortunately, there are a lot of poisonous gas discharged from the pipes in all directions, so that the concentration of poisonous gas away from the basilisk is always kept below the limit of the protective means of Ryan's body. Lane carefully kept the distance from the basilisk, and did not want to get close to try the basilisk's attack power. Because Ryan does not have an attack that can be finalized for the time being, for safety reasons, he chooses to slowly kill the basilisk by constantly changing his position and attacking from a distance. Fortunately, this is a Christmas holiday. Ryan's dormitory is the only one. Even if he does not go back all morning, it will not cause others to doubt. 2 hours later, Ryan stood leaning gasping against a pillar. The body of the basilisk lies in the center of the chamber. Columns, weapon stations and plant debris were scattered everywhere in the back room. Thanks to the fact that these pillars are only decorative, the ceiling is still quietly overhead. The basilisk was covered with wounds all over, and half of its head was blown away. This was formed after Ryan couldn't move, but put a lot of cherry bombs with magic in his mouth to explode to ensure safety. The wound on the basilisk was caused by magic as well as pure physical damage. This situation is now beyond Ryan's expectations, because he never thought that the snake that was stabbed by Harry's sword in the original book was so resistant. The whaling gun and the crossbow that were supposed to kill the snake were originally planned. There was no point in hurting the basilisk. In the end, the basilisk was seriously injured in a long blow. Ryan felt that he spent enough time and energy to make Harry kill a dozen snakes. But looking at the wreckage in the basement, Lane realized that this was the difference between VIP and free players. Harry has a beast phoenix of the same level as the basilisk to help fight. The phoenix will automatically attack and detoxify and heal. Ryan released a lot of plants to help in the later tug of war. It is a pity that other than the fire of the ground thorn and the fire dragon grass, it can slightly damage the part where the basilisk was knocked off the scales. Other plants have no killing effect on the basilisk. In addition to the gods and beasts, Harry also possesses a fortified artifact, the Sword of Gryffindor. It easily pierced through the skull of a basilisk that could not be penetrated by the high-strength alloy steel arrows enchanted by Lane's heavy crossbow powder. The result of the weapon is not as good as the result is that Ryan spent 9 cows and 2 tigers to achieve the effect of Harry's sword. It seems that next time I have to find some good equipment. After taking a break, I felt that I was not so tired. Ryan opened the Wanji grocery store and took the living plants back to the store. As soon as he opened the space door, Ryan could feel the desire signal sent by his newly cultivated mutant dragon grass in spiritual connection, as if the pet and the owner were coquettish. You are reading www.yuukanzu.com. It seems that it has been growing very fast recently, and actually can tell the Ryan basilisk through his soul that there is something that can promote the growth of this plant. After checking to confirm that the mutant dragon grass really produced a solid soul, Ryan issued a pet contract request to the mutant dragon grass based on the knowledge passed on by life magic. Obviously, fire dragon grass is very dependent on the creator of Ryan. After receiving the contract, he immediately split a part of his soul and gave it to the pet contract formed by Ryan. Since it is already a pet, it must be treated well. Ryan took the mutant dragon grass out and set it aside, ready to wait to clean it up before seeing what it needed. Then open the space door leading to the world of Plants vs. Zombies and summon several ready robots to clean the scene. Instructed the robot to remove the snake gallbladder and several fangs from the basilisk's stomach. Ryan checked it carefully for a while, and after checking that it was good, he put it in the grocery store. Then dig out the mutant dragon grass from the pot and place it on the wound on the head of the basilisk. Fire dragon grass automatically extends the root into the wound and begins to absorb. Ryan saw this scene with a warm feeling of watching her child work hard to grow. He shook his head to drive away the strange thoughts in his mind, and then turned to the basilisk to break down other valuable parts. As a result, he found that the basilisk had shriveled with the naked eye, and the luster of the scales on his body slowly faded. How can rot so fast? Ryan inspected the basilisk in surprise, and finally was surprised to find that his mutant dragon grass was absorbing the essence of the basilisk at an unexpected speed. After seeing Ryan discovering its movements, the mutant dragon grass sent him embarrassment and prayers through spiritual links. After observation, Ryan learned that the mutant dragon grass will not be injured after rapid absorption. He smiled helplessly and sat aside, waiting for the end of the absorption of the fire dragon grass. Chapter 112, looking for loot. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, the absorption of the mutant dragon grass finally ended, and the basilisk became a pile of bones. Ryan put on dragon leather gloves and stepped forward to pick up a piece of bone, but found that the weight was obviously lighter than expected. After squeezing a little hard, the bone quickly turned into a handful of ashes. The absorption is too clean. After looking at the skeleton of the basilisk and confirming that there is nothing valuable, Lane began to carefully check the status of the mutant dragon grass. From the appearance, there is almost no change in phalaenopsis, and at most the leaves are greener than before. But in the spiritual connection, dragon grass told Ryan that he had undergone a reborn change, and he would be born after a while. Born. Thinking of here, Ryan observed the dragon grass again. Only then did I find that it was not this whole dragon grass that signed the pet contract with myself, but the big football fruit on the dragon fruit. Seemed to be just too tired, but I didn't see it at all. It seems that I am still inexperienced and not cautious enough. After the garbage in the basement was almost cleaned up, Ryan recalled all the robots and sent them back to the world of Plants vs. Zombies, and returned the reluctant mutant dragon grass to the grocery store. Then began to explore this secret room. According to legend, Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets was the earliest he used to study some of the magic that the other big three opposed. If this is the case, there may be other valuable things left in this chamber. After all, the size and exquisite decoration of this secret room are a bit too wasteful if used as a basilisk lair alone. As mentioned in Hogwarts, a piece of school history, Slytherin kept a basilisk in the secret room to clean up the wizarding background of the mul in the school. Ryan didn't believe a letter. The reason is also very simple. On the one hand, in the battle just now, Ryan discovered that the basilisk is a beast with only a little wisdom and instinctive action. Today, there are not many wizards in the British wizarding world who have always been pureblood, even including many families that are said to be pureblood. Ryan does not believe that the basilisk IQ can make accurate judgments. On the other hand, the ability of the basilisk cannot clean Hogwarts completely. If a sneak attack is concealed, as long as a few students are attacked, the school may be closed. And if you attack hard, the only option is when the students are gathering, and the professors are always there. The principals and professors of Hogwarts have always been strong, and it is definitely not difficult for them to join forces to kill the basilisk. So what is the basilisk doing? With such a question, Ryan carefully inspected every inch of the secret room, trying to find the answer. After inspecting the interior of the chamber and finding no problems, Lane turned his attention to the Slytherin statue. After chanting the door-opening spell again, Ryan got into the opened mouth of the Slytherin statue. This hole is very dark and not short in length. There is a feeling of fear when walking inside. However, the diameter of this tunnel is large enough for an adult to walk upright. After walking more than 10 meters, Ryan saw the light in front. After walking a few steps and turning a right angle, he found himself in a stone room. The side of the stone room is inlaid with several transparent crystals, allowing the light from the bottom of the lake to shine through the crystals. In addition, there was a dim light from the top of the head. With these lights, Ryan carefully looked at this stone room. This space is about the size of a classroom, with nothing but a burning oil lamp overhead. Ryan just felt a little frustrated, and suddenly an excited spirit woke up. Oil lamp. How could there be an oil lamp in such a closed space? And how could such a small oil lamp burn for so long? Using the hook to hook the oil lamp off, Ryan discovered that it was a very simple bronze oil lamp with a silver Slytherin Academy symbol on it. The most important thing is that there is a silver oil bowl in the bronze lamp, and the edge of the oil bowl is embossed with two serpentine letters S representing the abbreviation of Salazar Slytherin. There is a gold wick in the middle of the oil bowl. The lights were burning on the wick, but there was nothing in the oil bowl. This should be the Kublai fairy fire. Legend has it that only the most powerful wizard can release this magic, so that the flame can burn across time and burn eternally. Thinking of here, Ryan hangs the oil lamp back to its original position. This oil lamp should look like the Hogwarts handmade by Slytherin, with the Slytherin College logo on it. This monumental thing belongs to the school property. It's not good to take away. Not to mention that this thing cannot improve people's ability, and it can't be exchanged for money, and it doesn't make much sense to hold it. Then began to search the entire stone room inch by inch, because if something is hidden in the secret room, it should be hidden in this stone room. After all, if this is the case, a snake monster in the secret room can explain it. It is the monster that Slytherin is looking for to guard the treasure. After repeatedly searching for nothing but the oil lamp in this empty house, www.mplnovel.com, Lane tried to pronounce various requests in snake language. When he read the secret that shows you in snake language, the brightness of the oil lamp suddenly increased several times. A lot of text was displayed on the four walls, and a lively snake was projected on the corner of the wall. Is this Slytherin's heritage? Ryan did not dare to enter the world of Plants vs. Zombies immediately and took a film camera and rushed back to the house. In the process of taking pictures, Ryan discovered that these words were Latin. Fortunately, he knew the Latin numbers, so he took all the words in the order of the Latin numbers at the beginning of each paragraph. After spending half an hour watching 2 cycles and consuming several rolls of film, Lane determined that these heritages have a total of 186 pages. It is a pity that he basically does not know what is written above. It seems that he can only find a way out after going out. After confirming that there were no omissions, Ryan tried to say in snake languages to the wall that had just been projected with a snake, "Open." The original smooth stone wall appeared a door made of stone with a delicate snake-shaped bronze door handle. Ryan grabbed the door handle and pulled it hard, and the door opened easily, which caused him to slam the door because he didn't master the balance and fell. Even after thousands of years, everything in the Chamber of Secrets is functioning normally under the magical protection of Slytherin. This is a very shocking discovery. Behind the door was a spiraling staircase. Ryan walked up the stairs for more than 10 minutes and finally stopped at a wall. Speaking again in snake language, the wall moved quickly to both sides to reveal a small door for only one person to enter and exit. Looking long from the door, Lane could see the tapestries in the hallway outside the door and the burning torches on the wall. It seems that he has returned to the castle. Chapter 113, End of Adventure. When walked to the door, Ryan received 20 offset points from killing the basilisk. It seems that this time the harvest is not bad. After stepping out of the little door, the door closed quickly behind Ryan and returned to its original state, which looked no different from this section of the wall. After observing the wall, he saw a small carving of 2 letters S stacked on a brick. After noting the approximate location of the door on this section of the wall, Lane started walking in the corridor. He found that he had never been here, so he eagerly hoped to find his way out. There is no window in this corridor, all lit by the burning torches on the wall. Ryan took out his pocket watch and saw that it was now 9 o'clock in the morning. It's easy to judge that your location should be in the basement. Walked for a while, and suddenly footsteps came from the front corner. Ryan subconsciously gave himself a phantom body curse, and then shrunk in a corner without moving, because of insufficient level. It was easy to be found if he moved. Several students wearing silver-green scarves walked by the intersection, and then said something to a section of the wall. A door was opened on the wall, and they went in afterwards. It turns out that this is the location of the Slytherin common room. Ryan walked in the direction of those people. A few minutes later, he came to a large staircase, and he recognized that it was the only way to take the potion class every week. The big staircase leading to the underground classroom. After confirming that no one was around, Ryan lifted the illusion of his body and went up the stairs. As soon as he returned to the common room, Ryan met the Weasley twins. Fred greeted Ryan when he saw it. "Ryan, where did you go for a night tour?" "So embarrassed." "Yeah, we smelled this smell as soon as you came in," George echoed. Ren felt very nervous when he first heard Fred talk about the night tour. "Then I thought that I had just spent several hours in an underground pipe that had not been cleaned for at least half a century." For the veteran twins, it was easy to see that they had gone out for a night tour. It seems that they didn't find themselves in the secret room. Ryan said with a sigh of relief, "I found a secret passage yesterday, so I walked a long way along the secret passage and made me come back this morning." "Where did that secret passage go?" Fred asked excitedly. "I found a secret road leading to the other side of the Black Lake behind the statue of Grigori." Lane recalled a plot in the book. "It's not easy for a good baby like you to find a secret passage. But we found that place in the first week of school." George knew what they heard when he heard this secret passage. Said, "By the way, we are going to try out a new product tonight. Would you like to come over and see?" Fred suddenly thought of something and invited Ryan. It seems that there was no gang for helping them before. This time, if you get it right, you may get a deeper contact and participate in their careers. Considering the prosperity of their business in the original book, it should be a promising thing to be an early partner. Thinking here, Lane said to the twins with a smile, "Of course, I have been curious about your research. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to participate." After listening to Ryan's answer, George said to Fred, "Look, I'll tell you that many of our friends have been quietly engaged in research. Only by finding some people who like to study can help us. Busy. Do you want to talk about nerds?" Lane thought of saying goodbye to the twins in this way, and went back to his dormitory to sort things. After washing and changing a new set of clothes, Ryan opened the space and went to the world of Plants vs. Zombies to prepare to rinse the photos. When he stepped out of the space door, he found himself in the warehouse, and Dave was standing beside him in a white coat studying the garbage he threw in. Dave was startled after seeing Ryan suddenly appearing, and then excitedly said to Ryan, "Dave found the blood of a magical snake in what you threw, and the DNA actually showed this snake. It has been over 1,000 years old and it's incredible. You know, my world is magical, so sometimes things that you think are impossible really exist." After that, I handed a fang in a box to Dave. "This is one of the few remaining parts of the snake. The toxins on it are very violent. Be careful when you take it. The rest is completely absorbed by a new mutant dragon grass I have cultivated." Dave picked up the box and looked at it, then closed the box and said in surprise, "Fire dragon grass? How is it possible?" "If you say that it is piranha, I believe it." Looking at Dave's unbelief, Ryan took the dragon grass from the grocery store and handed it to Dave. Dave had to admit after inspection that he could no longer see what was going on with the dragon grass bottom. The only certainty is that it is in good condition. After watching the dragon grass, Dave asked, "Oh, what are you doing here now?" "I found what was left by a very great wizard from us in the snake's den www.mplenovel.com, so I took the camera and took it. I am here to wash the photos now. Take a look at the no one can help me translate the Latin inside. You should find me about this matter. We found a data storage center in the city 2 days ago. I use the data inside to upgrade my artificial intelligence. I can use artificial intelligence to translate for you later." After talking about what Dave put down, he took Ryan toward the basement of the fortress. Finally, he was taken to the door of an underground darkroom where the photos were taken. "Your technology level is so high. Why do you still want to use this film camera?" Ryan asked, somewhat puzzled. "No way. Dr. Zombie made a lot of electromagnetic pulse generating devices in the zombie gathering area. All digital cameras will fail all around that." Soon the film was finished, and Dave took Ryan to the deepest machine room underground. Seeing his eagerness, Ryan felt that Dave probably had a strong interest in research in another world. After putting the photo in the dedicated scanner, the scanner quickly scans the text on the photo. Fortunately, Slytherin's words were written clearly, without much difficulty in identifying the system. "The computer here is just a mini-computer, connected to the mainframe in my laboratory in town through an underground optical cable. So the recognition speed here is much faster than you think." While waiting for the recognition process, Dave was proud, Ryan said. After a few minutes, the computer beeps, and it seems that all the characters in the photo have been recognized. Ryan and Dave immediately sat in front of the display to see what the great wizard of thousands of years ago had left behind. Chapter 114, Message 0 years ago. As the mouse wheel turned, Slytherin's message in the secret room appeared before Ryan's eyes. Unlike Ryan's imaginary full knowledge of magic left to future generations, Slytherin only introduced his thoughts and reasons for leaving Hogwarts at the beginning. Judging from these self-reported texts, Slytherin was not the dark wizard previously thought by Lane, because he declared at the outset that his principles of doing things are harmless to others and do whatever he wants. Obviously, a powerful wizard like Slytherin disdains and lies, so this principle should be true. So what is the reason? So that later generations think Slytherin is a dark wizard? Ryan continued to look down with doubt, followed by a paragraph describing the reason why Slytherin left Hogwarts, because he had irreparable differences with the other 3 founders on the teaching route from the beginning of the school. When they founded Hogwarts, Europe was in the Dark Middle Ages. Wars and disputes dominated Europe at the time. The magic world is also full of black wizards. After all, in this weak meat-eaten environment, black magic that can quickly increase its strength is more popular with wizards. When the 4 wizards set up Hogwarts School at that time, they wanted to pass on the magical knowledge accumulated by their struggle against the black wizard to the next generation, and in this way slowly reverse the current situation of the proliferation of black wizards. Recast order. After all, a long war will erupt under the dominance of the dark wizard, and in the end will destroy everything in the magic world. In this case, Slytherin made a proposal to recruit only descendants of pure-blood wizards, because male-born wizards are likely to be affected by their loved ones. Because their loved ones are not as self-protective as wizards, they do something that hurts Hogwarts School. Not to mention the difference between muz and wizards in many places at that time. For example, in that era, many male-born wizard apprentices could not even read and write text, and the study of magic was based on a lot of knowledge. At the same time, hemp wizards lacking sufficient resources are more likely to walk on the path of black wizards who plunder others. From an absolutely calm perspective, Slytherin pointed out why not concentrate resources on the little wizards of reliable wizard families. In this way, the most efficient use of resources can be achieved, and as many excellent wizards as possible can be cultivated with limited resources. Due to the lack of productivity in that era, the difficulty of obtaining resources was much higher than that of modern times. For example, many herbs can be grown now, but in that era they could only enter dangerous magic forests to collect. But this view was refuted by the other 3 founders, who believed that Slytherin's view could indeed maximize the use of resources, but it lacks humanity. This is also the first time that the 4 major schools have diverged. Slytherin chose to give in. He does not interfere with the choices of the other 3 wizards, but just implements this idea in his college. There was a thing that made the difference suddenly increase. The early Hogwarts did not have so much magic protection now, because of the large amount of resources gathered in the school. It also attracted the glimpses of the Black Wizard. Once Hogwarts was attacked by the Black Wizard. Unfortunately, Slytherin students were killed in this attack, and Slytherin himself killed the Black Wizards in anger. The act of killing the Black Wizard did not arouse the opposition of the other 3 founders, and the just Gryffindor only said that they need to be tried to deal with them. After all, it was a dark age, and even the kindest Hepathy was killed from black wizards, werewolves, and vampires. But since then, Slytherin began to teach black magic to his students, because he thinks that if students want to truly defeat the Black Wizard, then they must understand the Black Wizard's means. This is also the reason why later generations think Slytherin is a black wizard. He taught black magic at Hogwarts, and those who heard his lectures in that year agreed that his research on black magic was very deep. It has become a popular saying that Slytherin is a dark wizard after thousands of years. Naturally, this practice caused the opposition of the other three founders, because when they established the school, they vowed to build a magic school that had never been there, to teach magic that can really compete with black magic. Now the Slytherin approach makes them worry because the students are young and have insufficient experience. In this case they are likely to go astray under Slytherin's professor. But Slytherin believes that every student is a fighter ready to fight the black wizard. So you need to know exactly what the enemy looks like from the beginning, so that they can have enough ability to transform the world after graduation. Because this matter has been arguing for a long time, Slytherin feels that if he continues to stay at school, www.mplnovel.com is likely to make the school split. Out of love for the school, he chose to leave the school and hunt down the black wizard for the rest of his life. Eradicate the thorns in the future for the school. Unlike the legend, Slytherin made full communication with the other three founders before leaving the school, just to ensure the safety of Slytherin and avoid the alertness of the Dark Wizard. The other three school founders of the same caliber only said that Slytherin had fled because of the quarrel. After the killing of black wizards, the rumors that Slytherin was a worse black wizard than the black wizard spread widely in the magic world. The rumors eventually made the reputation of the Slytherin black wizard as of today. And this secret room was the last thing Slytherin did for the school before leaving the school. In his vision, the magic world will continue to progress with the passage of time. His descendants will pick up his vision of the year to turn it into reality, and then benefit the entire magic world. And the Basilisk was only used by Slytherin as a temporary guard. At that time, Hagrid had just bred the Basilisk. Hogwarts Basilisk was the loot that Slytherin was waiting for to kill a dark wizard. He originally planned this Basilisk as one of the school's cards, which can help Hogwarts to survive the most difficult and weakest time of building a school. But I did not expect it to survive for thousands of years. After reading these brief introductions, Ryan couldn't help but sigh. Thousands of years can turn a great wizard who lives for school and dreams into an evil black wizard in people's word of mouth. The students in the academy named after him, even his descendants, adore black magic and take pride in becoming a black wizard. If this is to let Slytherin, who aims to eliminate the black wizard, know for sure that he will run straight from the underworld to clean up these apprentices. Chapter 115, Slytherin's Knowledge. There is no doubt that he is a great person. Seeing this, Dave spoke to Ryan around him. Indeed, it is a pity that his descendants embarked on a wrong path, and my world's biggest enemy is one of his descendants. After sighing, Dave and Lane continued to look back at the great idea left by Slytherin. They found that apart from Slytherin's self-introduction in the front, all the content behind it was written on his assumption. Slytherin believes that wizards are naturally inferior to many magical creatures, but they have summed up the rules of magical use through their own wisdom, and strengthened themselves by inventing various tools, eventually becoming the highest in the magic world. Ruler. But this advantage can be imitated, not unique to the wizard, but the wizard has invested more in this area than other ethnic groups because of the innate basis of not recognizing people. But in the magic world, other than wizards, there are other creatures with wisdom, such as goblins, vampires and the like. Slytherin feared that one day these creatures would learn to imitate wizards, narrow the difference from wizards, and eventually unite one day to wage rebellion. Wizards are not as talented as magical creatures, so they are likely to be at a disadvantage or even worse. After all, the competition between species for living space is cruel. He didn't think that in that case other creatures would leave the wizard with the possibility of accumulating strength. Therefore, he proposed that if the wizard and some magical creatures are combined with each other, the wizard will gain extraordinary magical abilities, which can make up for the innate deficiencies of the wizards and ensure that the entire ethnic group has always been in an absolute dominant position. Behind is a compilation of ideas of known Slytherin test records. Dave looked at the test records and said, so many test records indicate that there are not many test samples, but this person puts each test the effect and performance of the sample are to the extreme. If he chooses to be a scientist, he will also become a very great scientist. Lane looked dizzy at so many records and content, so he asked Dave, from a professional point of view, what exactly do these things describe? Dave said to Ryan after reading it carefully, I can't believe this is something that was proposed by a person 1,000 years ago. You know that I am an expert in genetic modification, and if these records get rid of magic in part, it can be seen as a process of genetic modification. The reason why he gave up in the end is because the mortality rate of this genetic modification is too high. After speaking, Dave pointed to the last paragraph on the screen and said, you see, it is likely that he knows the snake best in animals, so he used the snake as an example throughout the experiment and transferred the advantage of the snake to the human body. But because of a huge gap between the two species, doing so is very risky. The only thing he confirmed to be useful was the protection of snake scales under the skin of vital parts of the body. Other ideas, such as the pupil of the snake, the transplantation of a certain magical ability. He later cautioned that because it was too dangerous, he hoped that the latter could do it again under conditions that ensure safety. Ryan suddenly thought of the same face as Voldemort's two-hole socket. It seems that he saw these things at the same time. It was just that Voldemort, who was only obsessed with power at that time, ignored the ancestors' views on black magic and ignored Slytherin's rigorous attitude. With a strong magic power and a part of luck, he completely transformed himself. No wonder he told Dumbledore that he had undergone several dangerous transformations, at least from what Slytherin left behind. It is impossible to describe with a small probability that you can live to accept these 9 death-for-life transformations. Can also be analyzed from this, at least Voldemort should be the son of luck of the whole world at that time. Otherwise, it is difficult to explain what would allow him to survive these transformations. After all, even having a Horcrux can only guarantee his resurrection after death, but he cannot guarantee that he will not die. Lean asked Dave to help print out these contents, although he did not intend to transform himself. After all, Voldemort's failed example was placed in front of him. But there is a lot of knowledge about soul, body, life and death in Slytherin's notes. Ryan felt that these things could improve his understanding and learning of life magic. Dave suggested that he could share this knowledge, because he felt that this knowledge would help him to further develop new plants. He feels that the existing plant mutation path has begun to reach the bottleneck stage, and the genetic fusion in these notes has brought him new inspiration. Lean agreed to share this knowledge. After all, humans in this world are still on the verge of extinction. If they can increase their strength, they can enhance their hope of survival. He is not a savior, but this kind of thing that will not harm any of his own interests and can help others with ease is still very happy to do. After this period of experience as a leader, Dave's level of dealing with people has also greatly increased. www.mtlnovel.com. He soon proposed to use his knowledge of computers and artificial intelligence as a reward for getting knowledge from Ryan. After analyzing Slytherin's message, Ryan took the opportunity to mention the deficiencies of the plants in the battle with the Basilisk this time. The conclusion is that it lacks the ability to break armor and detoxify. This situation caused him to be very passive in the battle. After listening to Ryan's complaint, Dave took it very seriously. Because zombies may also use poisonous gas or thick-skinned varieties, only prepare in advance to study plants that can be used in various environments in order to avoid being caught by surprise. Finally, Ryan ate something here to fill his stomach, and then said goodbye to Dave with a mobile hard disk storing computer knowledge and returned to the Wanji grocery store. He first spent 8 offset points to learn Dave's software programming technology, and then went to check his baby mutant dragon grass. Fire dragon grass is now dormant, and the will inside tells Ryan that it will come out of the fruit after absorbing this harvest. The little guy still has to sleep for a while. It seems that it will not be born in a while. Ryan shrugged his shoulders and returned to the dormitory. Fortunately, there was no one in the dormitory, otherwise Ryan's stay in the dormitory bed for an hour during the day would definitely cause others to doubt. After solving the basilisk, Ryan felt as if he had dropped a large stone in his heart. After all, those people in the original text were not petrified by chance and were petrified. Before that, Ryan had been worried about the butterfly effect due to his existence. In case of accident, which classmate died because of the basilisk would be guilty. Now the biggest threat has disappeared, and the next is a happy Christmas holiday life. Thinking of here, Ryan hummed happily out of the dormitory. Chapter 116, Daily and Elective. The rest of the holiday Ryan was very happy and fulfilled. He successfully joined the Weasley brothers research team, and using his knowledge in medicine and herbal medicine has greatly promoted the research of some projects. For example, they have developed a prototype of vomiting sugar, which can achieve vomiting without hurting the body. The only shortcoming is that the vomiting can only be ended after the effect of the drug has passed, and the corresponding antidote has not yet been studied. In addition, Ryan also thought about whether to go to the Ravenclaw crown in the request room. After all, there are already basilisk teeth in his hand that can cause damage to the crown. But after thinking about it, I decided to give up, because the crown in the original text stayed honestly for decades and was burned by a fierce fire without hurting anyone in the middle. So the urgency to solve it is not so strong. Not to mention that it is different from the Horcrux made by Voldemort, a teenager, who used a common book bought on Mall Streets in his teens. The Horcrux in the request room was made with the crown of Ravenclaw during Lord Voldemort's magic. This treasure is on the same level as the sword of Gryffindor. Ryan has no way to guarantee his safety when destroying the Horcrux. However, in order to confirm the safety, Ryan probed the place where there was something in the room as a treasure hunt. Finally, make sure that the crown of Ravenclaw stayed quietly on the head of the ugly statue. Fortunately, this Horcrux was not activated because of Ryan's activity, and there were not many dog blood incidents in the same kind that the second Horcrux attacked students at school. Otherwise, this semester will definitely be busy. Of course, since I came here to go home empty-handed, I was a little lost. After spending a whole morning picking repeatedly, Ryan found a great curse note in it. The scribbled text on the last few pages of the note explains why the note was discarded, because the owner's boyfriend broke up with her, and the notebook was sent by her boyfriend. Emotional issues will always be one of the most difficult in the world. Ryan shrugged and walked out of the room with a notebook. After confirming that it is safe now, the days are lightened. The happy time is always short, and soon a new semester begins. Everything goes to normal school. The only problem is that Lockhart is still dead. He may feel that a simple performance is not addictive. In a class, he let everyone add magic to the performance. It happened that Hermione was called up to perform a female ghost. Maybe it was the wrong day, and Hermione didn't seem to be in a good mood. Lockhart quickly gave him a lot of obstacles when he started shouting. Lockhart was hit on the spot and his head knocked on the doorframe and passed out. Good job. Ryan quietly extended her thumbs to Hermione below. Hermione smiled embarrassedly when she saw it. Afterwards, someone ran out and called for Professor McGonagall to take Lockhart to the hospital during the lesson preparation. The students were talking in the classroom. After all, this was not the first time Lockhart had missed. Some people began to question Lockhart's level. After spending this chaotic black magic defense class, many students completely lost faith in the black magic defense class. At the homework tutoring party that evening, Ginny suddenly stood up and asked, "Hermione, Ryan, can you tell us how to learn the dark magic defense class? Anyway, we feel that daily drama practice will definitely not work." Colin nodded with several first-year students. "I think the black magic defense class is still a course based on actual combat. In addition to understanding the principles and understanding the textbook, you have to practice it," Hermione said. "So who do we have questions for?" Colin asked. "I think we can discuss with each other first, and then ask some seniors. If you can't, you can find other professors, as long as it's not Lockhart," Lane replied. After Ryan saw Colin and Ginny heading to Harry Potter, it seemed that they were very happy to have an excuse to approach their idol. This should be considered a good thing. Ryan looked at Harry's headache expression so comfortingly. It's Easter, and a very important thing happened to the second-grade students, that is, electing the elective courses of the third grade. This is a weekend. After regular weekly combat training, Lane returned to the common room after lunch and found that Harry and Ron ran to the court to play Quidditch. Looking at the empty room, Ryan called Hermione to go to the sun by the lake because he felt that if he was bored in the castle all day, people would definitely be moldy, especially in addition to the first-grade flight class. The only outdoor class for second-grade students is herbal medicine class, but sunbathing in a glass conservatory is not an outdoor activity at all. "I think it affects our future, so I must be cautious." Even if she left the castle, Hermione could not lose what she had, and she said to Ryan with the third-grade class schedule, "What do you think of my selection after all? There is no saying in this class that you can't select all of them." www.mplnovel.com. "I think the wizards must have a way to solve the problem of taking several courses at the same time." "I don't think it's a good idea," Ryan said. "After all, people's energy is limited. For a true wise man, learning to give up is more precious. I think the people who have chosen all the more highlight that they can't catch key issues in one thing. In this case, it is important to separate the key points from the non-key points and treat them separately." Ryan's comment seemed to confuse Hermione. She immediately took out the class schedule and said to Ryan, "But I think every class in it is very important." "Well, since you think the course selection will affect the future, can you tell me what you plan to do in the future?" Ryan thought about it and started asking basic questions. "Future?" Hermione seemed a little confused to hear Ryan say this, because for a 12-year-old girl, the future is still a little further away. Looking at Hermione's confusion, Ryan even wanted to take a camera to take this scene. After all, in his impression, Hermione has always been a smart and capable person, and it is not uncommon to show such a confused expression. A few minutes later, when Ryan began to boredly count the suction cups on the paws of the big squid in the Black Lake, Hermione recalled, "The short-term goal is to protect the important person, and the long-term goal is to reverse what is now pervading the wizarding world, deep-rooted discrimination against people who are not magical and related to their affairs." After speaking, Hermione looked at Ryan, hoping to see his evaluation. Ryan thought for a while and said, "It's difficult to achieve these goals, but it's not impossible. All you need now is to choose courses that are useful to you from so many courses." "So what do you think is a useful course?" Hermione asked. Chapter 117. 1 point about course selection. Is the course useful to you? This needs to be analyzed from each course. After the analysis, you can easily choose the course you need. Ryan said. "Let's talk about the elective courses for the third grade. They are divination, arithmetic divination, protection of magical animals, ancient magic, and moral research. Everyone chooses at least 2 courses." Ryan paused here and saw Hermione. After concentrating, he said, "First, let's talk about divination and arithmetic divination. Some of the content of these 2 homework parts overlap. However, I personally prefer to count divination." "Why?" "Counting divination is a complex mathematical problem, and it is also useful in the study of magic arrays. Many curse solvers in Gilling Pavilion have learned this, but divination is different. As far as I know, the magic world divination is a skill that requires talent. If you don't have talent, You won't learn anything. Just like we can't practice Quidditch, we can't compare to Harry. What about the other courses? After listening to Ryan's analysis, Hermione didn't express her views but went on to ask, if you need to work in the field for a long time or need to take risks, then the class of protecting magical animals is very important. Some positions in the Ministry of Magic also need to master the knowledge of this class. Ancient Mojo. This course will talk about ancient magic and the basic magic composition of magic. This is a course that any wizard who is interested in academic achievement must learn. From the gold content in the Hogwarts curriculum arrangement, it is one of the best. The Mole Research course is just the opposite. Except for certain individual positions in the Ministry of Magic, this course is basically useless for us who are from Mole backgrounds. At least I think it's very stupid to describe the role of the rubber duck or to draw how to move things without magic. And the biggest difference between the magical world and the Mole world is that the magical world values personal strength very much. For example, our Principal Dumbledore is considered to be a representative of the British magic world. Why is it not Fudge? Not Dumbledore is considered to be the world the greatest white wizard. If you are interested in changing the entire world of magic, then I personally feel that at least your personal strength is necessary. After listening to Ryan's narration, Hermione nodded silently. Ryan knew he didn't need to say anything. After all, Hermione was a very opinionated person. At this time, he is not talking about his time. When the course was submitted on Monday, Ryan saw that Hermione was exactly the same as the course she chose. All selected numerology, ancient essays, and protection of magical animals. Overall, there are not many students in Gryffindor College who choose ancient magic and arithmetic divination, because these two courses are said to be more difficult. Most students chose to protect magical animals and divination classes like Harry, Ron and Neville. The reason why Ryan chose these two courses is that the mathematics divination requires the mathematics level of college entrance examination at most. The difficulty is not very big. Learning this is quite effective in cracking many magical institutions, and can play a big role in adventure. Chose ancient magic scriptures simply because he obtained the complete inheritance of ancient Viking sorcerers. After reading Percy S. ancient magic textbooks, he found that the contents of the book were not all he knew. In this case, why not take such subjects that are both compelling and easy to score? And Hermione chose these two courses because she is a true learner and hopes to learn more. In this respect, the first grade of her annual exam is also an inevitable result. After all, people who are smarter and harder than you can't afford it. In the school year when there is no Basilisk trouble, everything goes according to the teaching arrangement. It's time again for the Quidditch match on Saturday, this time Gryffindor v Hufflepuff. In the morning, all members of the Gryffindor team went to Gryffindor's table for breakfast. Captain Wood said enthusiastically, "It is the most ideal weather for the Quidditch game." At the same time, many scrambled eggs were added to each player's plate. Especially Harry. "Harry, you need to have a good breakfast. Playing Quidditch is a hard job. Eat more to last until the end of the game." It's just that there was an uneasy expression on Harry's face. After all, the impression that he was chased and played by a roaming ball last time was really bad, especially when the roaming attack came from a house elf. While Harry was thinking about emptying his brain, he put a hand on his shoulder. He looked up and saw that it was Ryan, with Hermione and Ron standing beside him. "Don't worry," Ryan said. "Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick will come this time. We will sit next to the seats of the professors. We will call the professor once we find something wrong." This comfort made Harry relax a lot. In the game, he successfully caught the Golden Thief, and then Gryffindor led the Hedgepuff by nearly 200 points. It seems that Dobby didn't come today. Maybe it was because the Malfoy family was delayed. At the celebration after the game, Ron made his point. Ron's guess was obviously correct, because the next day Daily Prophet wrote that Arthur Weasley inspected the Malfoy family. You read www.uukanzu.com and got a lot of black magic from the Malfoy's secret room supplies. Ryan felt that this might have something to do with him, when he made the sneezing potion with the Weasley brothers at night. The brothers have been complaining that their father worked overtime every day, but they always couldn't find out the black magic supplies collected by the Pureblood family. After listening to it, Ryan told the brothers all the methods of hiding treasures in his back room, including camouflage, and told the twins in a playful tone, maybe Malfoy's family would keep the secret storage room, put it under the living room floor. After all, there is a saying in my hometown that the most dangerous place is also the safest place. It seems that the twin brothers wrote all these things to his father's letter. Sure enough, when the experiment was done at night, the twin brothers came to thank Ryan for the reminder. At the same time, they also vowed that they did not tell this matter to others. In the letter to their father, they only said that it was their own thought. So there is a reason why the twins can make the business so big in the future. At least this kind of approach based on others' perspectives will make people feel very happy and will also recognize their friendship. Because everyone is in a good mood tonight, they successfully formulated a fever medicine that does not harm the body. Thanks to the fact that after Ryan joined, he rejected many of the raw materials through medical analysis and saved the Weasley twins from the pain of taking human experiments again and again. The next step is to turn these liquids into solids, and then mix in some irrelevant agents to blur the formula. According to Ryan's judgment on the current progress, it is likely that the finished product will be produced this summer. Chapter 118, New Guests. With Ryan's participation, the speed at which the Weasley brothers' vision became reality has greatly accelerated. Ryan had already seen how many gallons flew into his pockets in the future. In the last game, the 2 previous victories and the high morale of Gryffindor once again defeated Ravenclaw with a big score. After a few years, I won the college cup again. That night at the celebration party in the common room, because I couldn't get into the crowd around Harry Potter. Ryan and Hermione can only find a quiet corner while drinking pumpkin juice, while exchanging content about ancient magic. Then Ginny walked over to them and seemed very nervous. Today Harry won the championship, why not go and congratulate him? Hermione quipped. After all, everyone could see Ginny's adoration of Harry from the bones. I have something to ask you, Ginny whispered a little embarrassedly. What's the matter? As long as we know, it will definitely answer. Hermione looked at Ginny and said sincerely. Ginny opened her mouth, but made no sound. Ryan felt that she might be a little nervous, so she lowered her voice and said, relax, we won't tell you anything you say. You should also know from your classmates that Hermione and I are not the kind of people who can't talk. The advice worked, and Ginny took a deep breath and said, I like Harry. How can I get him to accept me? Ryan paused in the air with his pumpkin juice cup in his hand. He had never imagined that Ginny had to ask an emotional question. This problem is really a bit of a worry for him who has been single for 2 lifetimes so far. As for why Ginny took this question and asked them, it is estimated that it was because of the after-hours homework tutoring party that was not scheduled this semester. As the most active person in the party, it is normal for Ginny to be regarded as a reliable big brother and big sister, not to mention that Lane and Hermione have a good relationship with Harry. By the time Ryan woke up from her cranky thoughts, Hermione had already begun to teach Ginny her experience, although it sounded from some books. But Ginny, who had 0 experience, nodded again and again. Ryan recalled something while Hermione was chattering, and then said to Ginny while Hermione stopped, actually, Harry is not as mature as you. It might be scary if you say your thoughts directly, Harry. I think what you have to do now is to improve your overall level, and then communicate normally with Harry normally. One day Harry will truly recognize your heart. After the psychological counseling, the big guy celebrated for a while, and the party didn't end until Professor McGonagall came in and asked everyone to go to bed immediately. As soon as he finished his bed, Ryan was notified that a new customer had come to the grocery store. Ryan can only enter the grocery store in his cloak and pajamas. As soon as he entered the grocery store, he saw a woman in her 20s fell to the ground. Her face was pale, her breathing was close to nothing, and there was a huge wound on her neck. The whole person seemed to be frozen, and hoarfrost was still hanging on his body. Was this bitten one fighting the frost dragon? Is she still alive? Ryan was taken aback by this situation. He used soul detection in life magic. Seeing the guest's soul in front of her is still in her body, which means she is still alive. But unfortunately her soul lost quickly, and she seemed to be dying. Ryan was a little flustered because he had never encountered a similar situation before. Fortunately, there were many surpluses of potions prepared for the Basilisk, but now they were all shoved into the grocery store by Lane. He took out a bottle of white fresh essence and a bottle of healing potion from the pile of potions. He first sprinkled the wound with white flavor on the wound, and then filled the wounded with a bottle of healing medicine. Then Ryan pulled out his wand and began to read an ancient soul curse at the wounded. Sustain the soul. He could feel his magic power pouring into the wand like a tide as the spell was pronounced, and then turned into a trace of magic power into the body of the lady in front of him. This multi-pronged treatment lasted for nearly 10 minutes when Ryan began to feel tired. Finally the loss of her soul stopped. As the woman's vital signs slowly stabilized, Ryan let out a long sigh of relief. Thanks to this, I learned a lot from Madame Pomfrey, and took a step further to master the magic of life. Otherwise, this time, people may really not be able to come back. After covering the wound with a special bandage, Ryan looked at the blue dress on the woman's body and looked thin, worrying that the loss of temperature after such a major blood loss could lead to life threats again. So she was suspended with a floating charm and wrapped in a blanket prepared for her camping. After stabilizing the wounded of the wounded, Ryan was a bit worried. After all, the grocery store is not a hospital, and it is not suitable for people to be injured. And because she was injured in the soul, it is best to maintain her sleepy state to help recover. www.mplnovel.com. After thinking about it, Lane opened the space door to the world of Plants vs. Zombies. After searching, it was found that only 2 offset points are needed to send her into the world of Plants vs. Zombies. It seems that this person should not be very important in her world, otherwise how could this point be offset? This situation makes Ryan a little frustrated, because it means that it is difficult to earn enough deviation from this guest. But he still sent the wounded to the hospital in Div's new fortress, and asked the doctors inside to help her. Unlike last time when something happened in a hurry, Lane settled the wounded and finally had the mood to visit the recent development of this place. The construction of the fortress is nearing completion, and a large number of plantations have been opened around the fortress. Scattered people came and went inside and outside the fort. It looks much more crowded than in the town. This should mean that after obtaining a solid base, there are scattered human beings who have come to flee. At the same time, Kenway went to sea many times, and also received many people who took refuge there from nearby islands. Lane found that the people here didn't look very good. Most people had rough skin, as if they had suffered a lot. The dress is the same. It is a bit out of place, either wearing a whitewashed and patched clothes, or wearing a rough animal skin coat. But the ruddy complexion means that they have had a good day in the recent period. As a result, everyone has a hopeful expression on his face. Even now, due to population problems, everyone can only shrink around the fortress to support the activities of the fortress. The actual control area is this small seaside plain. But Ryan still saw a hope from the residents here. A hope for the rise of mankind. Chapter 119, End of Semester and Invitation of Ma Ren. After return in the fortress, Lane returned to the school dormitory with satisfaction. After cleaning up the bloodstains on his clothes and hands, he was lying on the bed depressed. Because of receiving guests this time, they not only did not gain anything but also paid a lot. Ryan decided to wait for her to wake up and ask which world she came from. Maybe she could get some gains. Lane thought about comforting himself like this, and then fell asleep. Before I fell asleep, I heard roommates discussing the game today with excitement. The excitement of winning the Quidditch championship soon passed because the final exam was coming. This can't escape without the Basilisk, and the students are caught in an atmosphere of tension and anxiety. Some small changes have also occurred in the school during this time. Lucius Malfoy took the house elf to the school one day and entered the principal's office. Afterwards, the lonely face came out of the principal's office. From that day on, Draco no longer walked around in school with arrogance, as if he were the owner here. On the contrary, he now has a sullen face all day long, seeming to be full of resentment in his heart. According to the legend in the school, because Lucius did something wrong, he had to release his house elf under the pressure of the principal, and he also lost the right to vote as the director of his school. It seems that Dumbledore investigated a lot from the note, forcing the Malfoy family to make concessions. Other than that happened to Lockhart, Rita Skeeter, the greatest member of the magical paparazzi, wrote and published an article, The Rise of Liars. She questioned Lockhart's adventures by finding various contradictions in Lockhart's book and his lame performance at Hogwarts. Lockhart's inability to defend was found more loopholes. Finally, 3 days before the exam, a team of Aurors came to the school and arrested Lockhart because he once stole an old wizard in the United States and stole the experience of an old wizard. After the report of Rita Skeeter circulated, several wizards came out to testify that the werewolf problem was not solved by Lockhart. The U.S. Magic Congress therefore sent an inquiry letter to the Ministry of Magic. A week later, Weesing Galmo sentenced Lockhart to 3 years in prison and compensated the victim with a large sum of money. Ryan and his classmates also celebrated for a little. At this time, the school ended the final exam. He and a group of students had enough time to celebrate Lockhart's rollover while enjoying this rare leisure time. The only thing that was unhappy at the celebration was Weasley's brothers, because they found that the expensive novels they had paid for were now turned into worthless waste paper. Since Lockhart was arrested, this year's Black Magic Defense class was given by Snape. The difficult test content made the students who have been grazing for a whole year wailing. Fortunately, the content of the practice is that Professor Flitwick made a question. He came up with a test plan that is close to the actual combat and gave many people the opportunity to redeem their test scores. There is a lot of obstacles in the test room. The content of the test requires candidates to use magic to shoot down weapons in the hands of the active dummy when they cross the obstacle. Lane won first place in this exam. I have to say that the actual combat experience helped him a lot. On the night before the score came out, Ryan received an invitation from Betty the Horseman while studying magic in the Emerald Dream. Betty invited him to participate in this year's Tribe Horses Adult Ceremony. Madu Adult. Ryan recalled the memories of the Viking wizard and found that this was one of the most important rituals of the horse people. Let the natural forces bless the horse people in their adult years. Only foreigners who are naturally recognized may be invited to observe the ceremony. In the memory, the tribe where the Viking wizard was young had a good relationship with several nearby horse tribes, but only one old shaman had received an invitation. This rare event must be taken a look. The next night, Ryan came to the edge of the Forbidden Forest according to the agreement, and saw Wolf, the wise giant wolf who came to pick him up. Betty asked me to apologize to you because they are so busy today that they can't draw people. So let me pick you up. After seeing Ryan, Wolf explained to Ryan, it's okay, you shouldn't bother them at this time. Let's go by ourselves. After Ryan finished the trail, he was ready to act. But Wolf stopped him. My friend, I think you should let me carry it back. Because before I set off, the druid in the tribe divination came out a little bit earlier than in previous years. If you walk past, you may miss the ceremony. Said at the end, Wolf bent his knees slightly to signal Ryan to go up. Ryan, who had a bad riding technique, lay on the whole body, and then grasped the hair near his neck with Wolf's reminder to fix himself. Wolf smelled clean, and there was no smell in the fur. After confirming that Ryan was lying down, Wolf slowly accelerated until he ran in the jungle. Ryan saw the trees on both sides quickly retreating backwards, and there was a whisper of wind in his ear. Ran for about 20 minutes, and Wolf stopped by the side of a river. Ryan immediately rolled off his back and lay sick on the ground. Because the difference between a wolf and a horse is very large, especially when running. The wolf's back movement is much greater than that of a horse, which makes Ryan, who has turned 20 minutes, feel very uncomfortable. He would rather walk over than stay on the wolf's back. "Hey, are you okay? The book says that humans and wolf cavalry. Why can't you bear it for a while? You were supposed to talk to you, and you didn't say a word along the way." Wolf was surprised. Said www.mtlnovel.com. Ryan raised his head feebly and said, "My friend, I just couldn't open my mouth just because I just turned upside down, otherwise I will spit it directly on you. And seriously, I think you should distinguish the difference between literary creation and reality. Why don't you say that there are dragon knights flying all over the book? But I think neither of us have seen a living dragon, have we?" "Yeah." Wolf seemed to have a feeling of sudden enlightenment, but the kind of wide-eyed eyes and pricked ears looked more like huskies. At this time, Ryan slowly looked around. The stars across the river lit up and showed the horse village. The villages of horsemen and humans are very different. The biggest feature is that each horseman village can maintain perfect harmony with the irreconcilable natural forces surrounding them, no matter how big it is. Like the ancient Viking shaman who visited the Ma Ren village. In memory, as all races may have a close connection with their surroundings, they subconsciously have a necessary balance between themselves and the natural world. Consciousness. The horsemen will never let any members go hungry or frozen, and lack of materials, but they will not be excessively demanded like nature. They will regularly change various sources of living materials from nature to ensure the redevelopment of the wildlife population. For example, they will adopt crop rotation in order to maintain the fragile natural balance. In the light of the light, Lane saw the village of the forbidden horses built on a quiet riverside open space, a hut built of rich raw materials in the forest. It doesn't look gorgeous, but it has a unique sense of warmth. The river is a little turbulent, but not wide. Lion crossed the river by hook, and then came to the entrance of the village with Wolf. There is already a horseman waiting for them. Chapter 120, Adult Ceremony. Slowly approached the reception horse. Lane discovered that the person who came to pick him up was acquaintance Fearns. It's just that today's Fearns is different from usual. He wears a loose white linen robe. "Welcome, friend of the forest." After finishing, Fearns put a hand on his chest and bowed slightly, then led Ryan to the village. Walked into the village, Lane, and discovered that the village of the horsemen was very special. The buildings in the village are stable shacks, and the size of these shacks far exceeds human standards. The buildings are arranged in a ring, with the entrance facing inward. The ancient Viking wizard believed that it was because the centaurs believed that every member of them was no more important than the other. The circular structure is an obvious manifestation of this equality. There is a huge stone stove in the center of the circle. Its position can be seen when the horses choose to keep it away from the trees around the village. This stove is public. Anyone can use it at any time, but generally only women use it when preparing food. In addition, in the cold, the stove will be continuously added with fuel wood to maintain the combustion of the stove, ensuring that the entire village can get a lasting heat supply no matter how cold it is. Of course, on this summer evening when the temperature is right, the fire in the stove is extinguished. After Fearns led them around the fire, Ryan saw the place where the horses held their adult ceremony. The altar. The altar is on the hill outside the village, and is connected to the village by a forest path. There is a large grass in front of the altar, and now there are many horses crowded on the grass. Under the guidance of Fearns, Ryan went round a circle and came to the place for the guests on the side of the grass. At this time, Ryan took the opportunity to observe the altar with the surrounding torches. The altar of the horsemen is different from the circular stepped altar at the release of the life magic mastered by Ryan. Their altar is an arch made of 3 basically unprocessed tree stumps. A large tree stump is behind the arch as a table for holding supplies. Behind the table is the dark forest. In the life magic mastered by Ryan, the circular stepped altar represents the power to communicate life and death wandering between heaven and earth. Well, the arch in the horseman's natural magic means the entrance to the natural world, where nature extends unconstrained. Because the ceremony could not start at a moment and a half, the boring Ryan had a whimsy to observe the feng shui of the altar by using the feng shui technique in the Moshan Dao Jing. The more he looked at Ryan, the more surprised he was, because the location of the altar was the best feng shui he had ever seen, and it could even be said that it was second only to Hogwarts. After applying several observation magic to himself, he found that the entire altar was in a natural energy-intensive area, and the barrier between the real world and the world of the Emerald Dream at the altar was very weak. It seems that this place is also carefully selected by the horse people. Ryan is more and more interested in the non-wizard intelligent creatures who have been taken by a stroke in the novel. After waiting for about half an hour, the sound of horseshoes came from the village entrance, and the first horseman who had participated in the adult ceremony had returned. Horses are different from humans. They are adults when they are 12 years old, so they can see the horses running around look childish. At this time, Aunt Betty came out of the crowd and stood by the altar. Today she did not wear the usual leather armor, and the second was also wearing a white linen robe. However, unlike the robes of Fearns, Aunt Betty's robes are embroidered with various patterns representing nature. The first horseman who passed the adult test has arrived at the altar, holding a rare fluorescent evening primrose in his hand. Fearns, who was on the side, said to Ryan, "Our trial before the Forbidden Forest Horse Tribe's traditional adult ceremony was to find a designated rare plant. Unfortunately, since the banned forest has changed since more than 40 years ago, our trial of the content of refining has also become independent to kill an adult 8-eyed giant spider and bring back its fangs. This time thank you for your help so that we can retrieve our precious traditions." At this time, Betty took the fluorescent primrose handed over by the little horseman, and placed it on the stump for the table respectfully, then chanted the spell. The man also bowed his head under the arch of the altar, and then put his fist on his forehead. After a few minutes, Ryan felt that the power gathered on the altar was getting stronger and stronger, and finally torn the barrier separating the real world and the emerald dream. The evening primrose on the table turned into a green light spot and disappeared in the emerald dream, and the same green light shot from the emerald dream and shone on the little horseman under the arch. When the green light disappeared, Ryan was surprised to find that the ponyman's body seemed to be stronger, and the overall temperament was more harmonious with nature. "This is our adult ceremony. Now it is my cousin who is baptized by nature. I envy him very much," Fallon said enviously next to him. "Why, is your natural baptism different from this one?" Ryan asked curiously. "It's really different. Because we were fighting with the 8-eye spider at that time, our offerings were the fangs of the 8-eye spider. Different offerings received different directions of strengthening when they received natural baptism, and our emphasis on strengthening it was put on the physique and responsiveness related to the battle. This makes us have some defects in the natural affinity that the horses are proud of." www.mplnovel.com. "So I said to thank you and let us retrieve it glory. But this kind of natural baptism is a creature only once in a lifetime. Doesn't it mean that you can't achieve natural affinity in your life?" "Yeah, but this is also the sacrifice we should make." Naturally nudged us. "We should also do something for her," Felons said with emotion. After, 2 other Ma people who were adults this year also received natural baptism. Ryan thought that today's ceremony was over, but Aunt Betty standing on the altar suddenly said to Ryan, "Please come up, our friend. Tonight's nature told me that you are the last person to receive natural baptism today." "Me?" Ryan pointed at himself in surprise. Betty nodded firmly. "This is the will of nature, and you are just 12 years old this year, just the age of natural baptism." The horse people gave way to an altar, and it seems that Betty as a shaman has a very high status among the horse people. Ryan walked to the altar with anxiety, and then asked, "This is the adult ceremony of the horse. Is it really appropriate for me to participate alone?" "I don't know," Betty said with some doubt. "After all, this kind of thing has never happened before. But when I just communicated the emerald dream in the ceremony, I felt that nature wanted to use this as a thank you." Betty's voice was not small, and several older horsemen nodded when he heard it. According to the previous introduction of Fearns, these horses are able to communicate the emerald dream, and it seems that they have also received this revelation. It doesn't look like it's harmful, thinking of Ryan's determination here. "Okay, I'm very happy to accept natural gifts." Chapter 121, Natural Baptism. It is obvious that Lane is not familiar with the process of this ritual, so Betty began to quickly explain what he should do in this ceremony. After Betty explained, Ryan knew that the offering must be obtained by himself, and the process of obtaining it must not be mixed with any evil behavior. Everyone can only put the same offering on the table, so be careful in choosing the offering. The most important thing is that the preciousness of offerings is not the most important. The most important thing is the process of obtaining such things. Natural will obtain this information from the offering, and then give it a fair feedback. It sounds very simple. Ryan was a little surprised, because he didn't understand why this ritual process, which is very important to the horseman, is so simple. Aunt Betty saw Ryan's confusion, and she told Ryan horses that people respect nature, so they opposed the red tape. Now these ceremonies are very grand and complicated for the horse people. It is true that different races have different values, and only mutual understanding can further communicate. It was like Ryan was recognized by the horseman tribe through deep contact from step by step and finally fighting side by side. The bureaucratic act of directly setting up a horseman's office like the Ministry of Magic is an excellent counterexample to communication. After explaining his inner doubts, Ryan began to think about what to choose as an offering. After thinking for a few minutes, he opened the door of the space and began to choose his choice from the Wanji grocery store. After some searching, Ryan finally took out what he chose, a bag-sized animal gallbladder. This is the courage of the Basilisk. Ryan is worried that if he takes something from another world as an offering, it would be bad if the natural consciousness of this world is not known. So after careful consideration, Lane chose the best loot he got in this world, the Basilisk. When Ryan took out the snake bile, Aunt Betty standing next to her pupils shrank sharply, and then asked with uncertain tone, "Is this snake bile?" "Yeah. The gall of a 1,000-year-old basilisk. I tried my best to get rid of it," Ryan said with pride. "At least we horses haven't had such a significant offering in the ceremony in the last few hundred years. I have to say that you are more powerful than I thought." "Well, since you have a tribute, let's start the ceremony quickly." After that, Aunt Betty signaled the ceremony to begin. Ryan followed the procedure to bring the snake gall to Aunt Betty. After Betty took the snake gall, she put it through the arch and put it on the table, then began to chant the spell. When the first small segment of the spell was finished, Ryan came to the arch and lowered his head, then clenched his fists into his forehead, and communicated with the natural consciousness in the Emerald Dream according to the ritual requirements. With Aunt Betty's spell recite to the most important passage, the Emerald Dream was opened, and the snake gall on the altar also began to change. Unlike the rituals in the ceremony just turned into a little green light, the snake gall bladder on the table gave off a green light like a fluorescent lamp. In the green light, the snake gall bladder slowly became smaller and finally disappeared on the altar. At this time, the green light on the arch also enveloped Ryan. An extremely gentle energy slowly poured into his body, and part of his knowledge began to flow into Ryan's mind. This seems to be the advanced natural baptism that Aunt Betty just said, and only a few lucky people can enjoy this. Thinking of Ryan's concentration here, because according to Aunt Betty's previous explanation, this advanced baptism has the opportunity to give the Baptist some useful abilities. Lean felt that after a long time, the green light in front of him finally faded away. This also represents the end of this adult ceremony. The horse people danced in the moonlight to celebrate the horse's adulthood. In a rapid drum sound, Ryan stepped down from the altar and found a quiet corner to see the changes in his body. After careful inspection, Ryan found that he had gained a lot this time, because the magic power in his body was originally gathered in the sea of consciousness on his head, while the spiritual power was stored in the dension in the lower abdomen. Before, he was very nervous about this situation. After all, different energies can easily cause problems in the body. However, this natural baptism formed an energy cycle between Shahai and Dungeon, and the two energies could be transformed into each other. Of course, this is also due to the fact that the two forces that Ryan masters are mainly based on natural balance. It is estimated that if he practices the forces related to death and killing, it may be directly exploded in situ in the baptism ceremony. In addition to building an energy cycle in his body, natural baptism also strengthens Ryan's physical and magical abilities. It's just that because it takes too much power to build the energy cycle, the improvement in body and spells is very limited, and it may be only half of the improvement of other horses. Finally and most importantly, that is, Ryan's soul confronts the natural will in the Emerald Dream during the ceremony. In this way, Ryan's affinity for nature has once again increased. www.mtlnovel.com. Fortunately, whether it is Ryan's life magic or spiritual Taoism, natural affinity is helpful to their practice. At the same time, natural affinity will allow Ryan to pay more attention to the whole world, and imitate the magic of all things in nature. Of course, this comes at a price. In the future, Ryan may encounter unprecedented difficulties and disadvantages when learning certain magic transformations or evil magic. For example, Ryan is basically impossible to learn to transform the permanent magic of Voldemort or Voldemort, and he will do more with less when learning the unforgivable spell. It was not too early to watch the sky, and Ryan said to Aunt Betty that she was going back to the castle. Aunt Betty was going to ask Wolf to send him, but Ryan watched Wolf having fun and told Betty that he didn't need anyone to give it away, because this time he improved his affinity with nature during the ceremony so that he could make a huge contribution in the Forbidden Forest. Safe as at home, left the Ma Ren village and returned to the jungle, Ryan gradually realized the effect of natural affinity. In the Forbidden Forest he felt a sense of relief, dispelling the fear of walking in the forest alone at night. At the same time, even if it was dark around, he could know which way to go and distinguish whether there were any obstacles under his feet. This also made him walk without the tiredness of walking in the Forbidden Forest before. After walking for a while to adapt, Ryan even put a hook brace on his arm, and then swayed around the treetops by hooking a branch. Soon he came to the path near the Forbidden Forest. When he walked out of the Forbidden Forest along the path and took out his pocket watch to check the time, he was surprised to find that he actually spent only half of his time. It seems that this natural affinity contains more mysteries than I imagined. If you have time, you must study it carefully. Maybe you can develop more uses. Chapter 122, Unexpected Letter and End of Semester. After returning from the Forbidden Forest, Ryan was even more busy. Every day, you need to spend a lot of time to study the mysteries of natural affinity. Fortunately, my physique was strengthened in the Forbidden Forest last time. At the same time, regardless of practicing the mentality of mosh-edging or studying natural affinity, it is conducive to the body to quickly eliminate fatigue. This allowed Ryan to have no physical problems. After several days of research and comprehension, Ryan finally started to understand this new knowledge of natural affinity. However, if you want to improve this ability after getting started, you need to spend a lot of time to understand nature, and you can't increase your strength through surprise research like now. After he was busy with these things in his hand, he found that most of the students in the public lounge and auditorium were discussing the arrangements for the summer vacation. Ryan was shocked that the days of the school year were completely over. At noon on the last day of school, when Ryan and Weasley twins agreed on the contact information for the summer vacation, a group of owls broke into the common room and sent the final grades to each student. Ryan found that he was still in second grade, and the learning Hermione again became the first in his age. But this year's transcript is not quite the same as last year. A thin letter is attached to the transcript. After unfolding the stationery, Ryan saw the contents written in emerald green ink inside. Dear Mr. Liang, I'm very happy to inform you that you have got the opportunity to go to the internship at the Castro Brusso School of Magic in South America. The exchange is scheduled to begin on September 1st for a semester. Exchange students will return to Hogwarts after the Christmas holiday. We will wait for your owl to bring your reply and your guardian's signature before July 31st. Vice Principal, Female, Malwa McGonagall. Behind is a list of items. In addition to the necessary textbooks and utensils, it is additionally stated that this exchange activity needs to pay 200 gallons. What's the situation? Ryan was puzzled by the letter. At this time, Hermione also came down the stairs over the girls' dormitory, holding an identical letter in her hand. Ryan, did you also receive this letter? Hermione asked when he saw the letter paper unfolded in Ryan's hand. Do you know what's going on? I didn't see anyone else receive the same letter at all. I asked a few school sisters, but I didn't know what happened, so I thought about asking Professor McGonagall. Ask Professor McGonagall? This is a good idea. After that, Ryan followed Hermione out of the common room to Professor McGonagall's office. After reaching the door of Professor McGonagall's office, Ryan gently knocked on the door. Professor McGonagall's voice came from inside. Please come in. Open the door, and Ryan saw Professor McGonagall sitting behind his desk and writing something. Soon Professor McGonagall put down a pen, motioned for Ryan and Hermione to sit down, and then asked, "Do you have anything?" Ryan took out the letter and asked, "I saw that only me and Hermione had this letter, so I wanted to ask what was going on in this exchange study, because we asked the seniors and got no news." "Oh, that's true," Professor McGonagall said, taking off his glasses and putting it aside, then said, "This is a new international activity project that the Ministry of Magic made this year. They hope to restore the international interruption caused by war more than 10 years ago. Exchange. Because this year is Hogwarts' first pilot, we selected the top 3 students from each of the 4 grades that do not have a big test next year from this year S1, 2, 3, 5, and went to Brazil to participate in this exchange activities." After glancing at Ryan and Hermione who were listening carefully, Professor McGonagall continued, "I am very happy to see all Gryffindor students participating in this activity. Of course, this activity is voluntary. You are given a month of consideration time to allow you and your parents to communicate carefully before making a choice." After listening to Professor McGonagall's explanation, Ryan signaled that he had questions. After receiving Professor McGonagall's permission, Ryan asked, "Brazil is a Portuguese-speaking country. How do we communicate there? Also, our parents not a wizard. You may not be able to judge the situation of this event. Can you give us some suggestions?" The language problem is easy to solve, because there are too many languages commonly used in the magic world of South America, so they adopt a bilingual system of Spanish and English. At least the professors and many students that can speak English, and you don't need to worry about communication issues. Spanish during this time, I will try my best to learn by myself. As for the suggestion, Professor McGonagall said for a moment, "I personally recommend you to go. This time I chose the students in the top 3 of the grade. It will not cause too many problems if I don't take classes in Hogwarts for a semester. After all, Castro Brusso is also a world-renowned magic school. The teaching level there will not be much worse than Hogwarts. And for a wizard, it is necessary to have extensive knowledge. The opportunity to go to other schools under different civilizations is a very eye-opening thing. Very beneficial to the growth of wizards." "Thank you, Professor." After answering his doubts, Ryan and Hermione thanked Professor McGonagall and left the office. At the year-end banquet in the evening, the food was still abundant. It's just that this year's Academy Cup was won by Ravenclaw, and Gryffindor was defeated by a single point difference because of his victory in the Quidditch game. But most of the people in the college are very happy, because this year they successfully defeated Slytherin. Only Hermione felt a little regret, but soon the unpleasant feeling in her heart was dispelled by the overall joyous atmosphere of the college. Early the next morning, the Hogwarts Express sent the students back to London on time. Ryan, Hermione, Ginny, Neville, Fred, and George were packed in a box www.mplnovel.com fully enjoying the last time of magic release before the summer vacation. Hermione was still reading a book, but soon joined everyone's chat. After learning that Ryan and Hermione received the opportunity to communicate with the Roblox School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, the Weasley twins seemed to have thought of something like this. "Castro Bruce School of Magic, we have heard of it several years ago. It seems that our brother Bill has a pen pal from this school." "Right, George?" "Yes, Fred, Bill's pen pals wanted to get an exchange tour at the time, but Mom and Dad couldn't afford that much money. He said he couldn't go. The pen pal was bad and sent him a spell. The hat made him wrinkle both ears. In short, that school has their unique strengths in the knowledge of magic plants. It's a good thing to go there and open our eyes. We seem to have an uncle in faraway Portugal, where his children go to school. Now graduated later he became a therapist in Streetmonger. Finally Fred concluded. After, everyone started chatting freely, and Ginny mysteriously told everyone that she found Percy looking for a girlfriend. After hearing the news, the twins looked very excited. Lane bet they would take this opportunity to laugh at Percy. The Hogwarts Express train gradually slowed down and finally stopped. Ryan and Hermione met Harry Potter and Ron as they passed through the site. While saying goodbye to each other, Harry took out a small note with numbers and handed it over. Can you call me at Dursley's during the summer vacation? I only spoke with Dudley for 2 months. I can't stand it. No problem. Ryan took the note and put it in his pocket, then passed the entrance with him and returned to the Mole World. Chapter 123, Summer Vacation and the Opening of a New World. Ryan returned home from school and was surprised to find that there was a brand new sports car that didn't look cheap. At dinner, he heard his father's bragging at the dinner table. He realized that his father's new novel, Mr. Lambert, was a big sale and made a fortune. On the day he received the manuscript fee, he put the sports car he envied for several years into his pocket. Of course, this kind of messy spending behavior also led him to only eat vegetable salad and rusks after returning home for several days. But looking at his father's gleeful look, Lane thought he might not have learned this lesson as thoroughly as his mother thought. On the first night home, Lane spent a lot of time talking with his parents about his life in Hogwarts this year. This caused him to remember that he didn't forget to tell his parents about the exchange student next year until he went to bed at night. Early the next morning, Ryan told his parents about the exchange in Brazil. After listening, the parents signed their names on the list without saying anything. His father Mr. Lambert also proudly told Ryan that he used the interval to travel throughout Europe, and also met his mother Sally. So he thought it was an absolute good thing for Ryan to go for a walk when he could go to school. Not to mention that Ryan became an exchange student because of his excellent blood, which makes him and Sally very proud. Older generations also have their own romance. Ryan collected the list. Then go back to the room to make your own summer vacation plan. In theory, most students will list a table at the beginning of the holiday. It is very organized to indicate what should be done every day. These forms are often arranged in a very reasonable and scientific manner. If you follow the contents on the forms, you will definitely get a very fulfilling summer vacation. Unfortunately, most people stick to this plan for less than a week, which is why Ryan will find Hermione to study together during the holidays, at least when an acquaintance is staring at him. He will work hard for various reasons. Schedule tasks on the form. When the two were doing homework in the library, Hermione told Ryan that her parents agreed that she would go to Brazil as an exchange student, so she suggested that Ryan also prepare her third-grade textbooks in advance during the summer vacation. Brazil delayed learning. This also caused Ryan and her to spend a lot of time on the homework every day in order to make time for the preview. However, within a few days of such a day, Hermione and her parents went to France for a holiday. Ryan can only do homework alone and study magic. On Saturday, the first week of the summer vacation, the phone bell at home suddenly rang. Ryan picked up the phone, and a huge shout came from the receiver. Hello, hello, can you hear me? I'm looking for Ryan. Ryan Liang. Ryan was taken aback by the sound, and quickly took the telephone receiver away. Then he said, Ron, this is Ryan. It's rude for you to speak on the phone in such a loud voice. The normal voice is enough when you call. Is it true? No one. Ryan called Harry and hung up. Ron sounded frustrated. Of course. That family doesn't like magic at all. If you tell them that you are a friend of Harry Potter, it is estimated that no matter how elegant you say, he will just hang up the phone. After chatting for a few days, Ryan ended the conversation with Ron. As soon as he put down the phone, Ryan received a message from Dave, telling him that the seriously injured woman he had sent last time was finally awake. This sounds good news. After all, this lady was unconscious for a few months. Ryan thought she would never wake up. So Ryan went out and left the house as an excuse, and then opened the space door to the world of Plants vs. Zombies in the small woods of the park. Through the space door, he quickly came to the hospital, because he wanted to know what the world of this lady is like. Only when he knows this, can Ryan decide whether to go to the world to take risks, and how to prepare if he wants to take risks. Entered the ward. Ryan was surprised to find that the lady was wearing a striped sick suit and seemed to have fallen asleep by the bed, while Dave sat aside and kept recording on the book in his hand. Seeing Ryan walk into the ward, Dave greeted softly, and then said nothing at all. The world in which this lady is located is very valuable to us. If you want to go to her world for adventure, you can help. My husband brought something back. A very valuable world. Why do you say that? Ryan asked with great curiosity. In a world where a full-scale war has just erupted, order will certainly not exist. You may get a lot of good things. I think you can find some industrial machinery to pull it back, because the end of the outbreak here is too long now. Most of the machines are completely destroyed because they have not been maintained for a long time. It sounds good. I will pick it up if there are good things. You need to find some people to wait in the warehouse. When I find something, I throw it in the door of the space. Although the communication between Lane and Dave was quiet, the lady on the bed was awakened. After seeing her awake, Dave introduced her to the identity of the Ryan plane traveler. After listening to Dave's introduction, the lady's face appeared anxious. Can you please send me back quickly? I have some urgent things to do in my world. Miss, please rest assured. Ryan saw this lady suddenly feeling excited. www.mtlnovel.com quickly comforted. In a while, the doctor will come to help you check your body. If everything is normal, I can send you back to your world. If you are not in good health, even if you go back, I think you can't do anything. After hearing Ryan's comfort, the lady finally calmed down. Soon he recovered from his previous gaffe, and then extended a hand and said, "Nice to meet you. My name is Nora. You can call me Ryan." Ryan and she said after shaking their hands, "If you check with no problem, you will be able to go home soon." At this time, the doctor came in from outside the door, and Ryan and Dave retreated to the entrance of the ward for reasons of avoidance. On the bench at the door, Dave gave Lan a thick book and told him, "The book is all the equipment we need. I have marked all the priority needs with a red pen as the city of green leaves. One of the leaders of mankind, I will do all the work that can't develop the city." "Leader? When will I become a leader?" Ryan asked curiously. "I thought you knew it when you got that gold-plated identity plate." "All the humans in the base believed that you and Dave were great savers, human star." "I think they are right. If without our plants, humans will most likely not be able to sustain them. Without the technology you bring, humans will only be able to breathe, instead of taking homes like today." Ryan was a little embarrassed to hear these comments, and knew why he asked himself for so many things before and was not asked to check out. It is a good thing to have your own world as a backing, but it is also a heavy responsibility. Ryan suddenly felt that his adventure had become very important. Chapter 124, It is actually a world familiar to Ryan. Although no previous or present life has ever been a leader, Ryan knows a simple principle that rights and obligations correspond. Now that I have enjoyed so many benefits of the Plants vs. Zombies world, it is reasonable to do something for this world. Soon after the doctor's examination, he came out of the ward. Nora only lay in the bed for a long time, which made her movements uncoordinated, but the body has completely recovered. Think about the terrible blood hole in the neck. If Ryan had life magic, Nora might have died long ago. It's pretty good to recover from such serious injuries in a few months. Not to mention what the doctor said, when Nora was sent in a strange frozen state, they could only put her in the cold storage while maintaining her life, while trying to make her safe to Thor. Well, finally succeeded. A few minutes later, Nora came out of the ward. She had put on a leather armor. This is the most popular style recently in Lui City base, which not only looks handsome but also convenient for activities. Most importantly, since only humans in the world of Plants vs. Zombies become zombies, zombies rarely attack non-human creatures, so wild animals multiply after the end. This makes leather armor and other clothing-making materials very easy to obtain. After seeing that Nora was packed, Ryan and the three of them came to the large underground warehouse last time. Then Ryan opened the space store and returned to the Wonji grocery store with Nora. "Where is this place?" Nora was a little curious about Wonji grocery store. After all, when she came here last time, she was in a comatose state and did not see the look of Wonji grocery store. You can think of this as a transit station between the worlds. Ryan finished standing by the door and began to pursue Nora's world. Soon, the pursuit came to fruition. The world in Nora's hometown is actually a 5th-level world like the Plants vs. Zombies world, which means that danger is likely to occur there. Thinking of this, Ryan asked Nora to bring a pistol and a dagger, and then he was fully armed. Finally, the 16 offset point was paid to open the space door to that world. Before Ryan said anything, Nora rushed in. Ryan could only keep up with his wand. As soon as he entered that world, Ryan felt uncomfortable. After learning life magic and natural affinity, Lane's sensitivity in this area has improved a lot. So he can feel that this world is a dying world. Both nature and life are on the verge of collapse. Even the world of Plants vs. Zombies feels several times better than this world. It was then that Ryan calmed down to watch the surroundings. He found himself now standing in a hallway on both sides of the freezer, while Nora was crying with a blue man lying on the ground. Ryan looked at the scene before him and finally knew where it was. This is the world of radiation, and I am now in Refuge 111, the starting point of the game of Radiation 4. The woman who saved herself before is the wife of the protagonist who should have been killed by a mercenary sent by the school. No wonder there were so few offset points when taking Nora to other worlds. After all, she was dead according to the plot, and disappearing would not affect the development of the subsequent plot. Unfortunately, when Nora entered the Wonji grocery store, Ryan was only concerned about saving people. She didn't pay attention to the style of Nora's clothes at all, and changed her clothes after being sent to the hospital. Otherwise, he should have recognized it already. After all, he spent a lot of time in this game to clear the game. It seems that after 200 years of separation, the protagonist and his wife need some time to talk to each other. Thinking of Ryan saying hello here, He began to wander around the refuge. This refuge is not very large because it is used for freezing. The only enemy is 5 or 6 radiation cockroaches. Ryan was useless for magic and easily killed all cockroaches with a picked baton. In the former staff dormitory, Ryan easily opened the cabinet with a freezing gun using the unlocking spell. I got the good things that I didn't get when I played the game in my previous life, and then searched around the exit and returned to the human body cold storage area. At this time, it seemed that Nora had already explained the situation. The man stood up weakly, and then reached out to hold Ryan's hand and said, "Thank you very much for saving my wife. My name is Knight. In the future, as long as you need me wherever I help, I am willing to do everything I can to help you. Now I am in a hurry. Do you want to come together?" "You're too polite. I just did what a capable person should do." Ryan smiled and handed BB Kid, potion and pistol to Knight, then said, "Your lady entered my world. Is it S2227 on your side, and it S2287 now? I don't know what you have to do, but I don't think you have to worry too much since the time has passed 60 years. "What? 60 years? Lane saw the couple's expression in surprise. You reading www.uukanzu.com. It is likely that they thought that their son might be older than them now, but soon they recovered from the shock, and then said, "Thank you for your reminder. But we must find the person who injured Nora and robbed the child anyway. After all, 60 years have passed since our child probably still alive." "I think so too. You know that I am a wizard. I once had divined what Nora hoped to find. I would definitely find it. When you say this, I think your child should be alive." Ryan comforted the couple like this. "Two people. Thank you. But I think it's better to go out from here now. 200 years have passed. I'm eager to know what's going on outside." Knight calmed down and said to Ryan. After Knight opened the shelter door with BB Kid, the three of them walked up the elevator to the ground. Came to the ground, and it was the bare mountains, the dead trees and the unexpectedly blue sky that caught Ryan's eyes. At the same time, he also felt that there were some bad things in the surrounding environment trying to penetrate into the body. Fortunately, because he mastered part of the power of life and nature, Ryan easily isolated these things outside the body. In addition to the ubiquitous radiation and the fifth virus in the air here, if you come here when you are not strong enough in the past 2 years, it is estimated that you have to go directly to the house. After the protagonist met Karma, after some conversation, everyone began to collect things in the surrounding ruins. Ryan opened the space door leading to the Plants vs. Zombies, preparing to summon a steam robot. First build a base. After all, on the premise of having a base, it is more convenient to collect materials or do other things in the future. Chapter 125, Establishment of New Base. After releasing the robot to work for a while, Ryan was surprised to find that the torch stump, which was the power, quickly collapsed. He also felt that the life of the torch stump was slowly declining. Is it because of fifth virus pollution and radiation in the air? Thinking of here, Ryan immediately made the robot stop the construction, and then notified the Plants vs. Zombies world with a note to send some sealed containers. After the sealed container was delivered, Ryan arranged for the robot to take samples of water, air and soil, and return to the world of Plants vs. Zombies with these dying plants. Then take out a large number of high-pressure steam storage tanks from there as temporary energy sources, let them clean the site here and build shelters. When he finished these, Knight and his wife had collected supplies and were ready to take a look at Concord. Lean thought for a while and decided to go with them. Because he needs to collect more things, it is necessary to go to the city to see. At the Red Rocket repair station, they encountered a bunch of mutant moles. Ryan waved his magic wand and joined the cleanup of mutant moles after adding an iron armor charm to 3 people. In the battle, Ryan took out the spells he knew one by one and tested the results. It was found that the disarming charm had no effect on the mole, and the coma charm could successfully stun the mole. Surprisingly, the ancient Viking's life spell is unpredictably easy to use, which can cause a lot of damage to the mutant mole. As he cleaned up his loot after the battle, Ryan thought, most of the creatures in the world have mutated under the stimulation of viral weapons and radiation, and uncleanness is the spell against these unnatural creatures. At the same time, this world is a world dominated by technology. The variation of creatures is entirely due to technology, which causes their magic defensibility to be extremely poor, and it is very easy to deal with. Ryan sent all the computers and some equipment that can be used in the repair station back to the world of Plants vs. Zombies through the space-time door. At the same time, a note came from the opposite side, telling Ryan Dave to find some very useful things from the plants and samples. Now he is returning to the laboratory for research. If there are similar biological samples, please send them back as much as possible. Now the warehouse has been changed to the highest standard sealed space, so don't worry about causing pollution. It seems that when encountering the Deathclaw for a while, it is very likely that this curse cannot be used, otherwise it will be impossible to study if it is ashes like the mutant mole. The loot search was completed, and the 3 people had some controversy. Knight believes that the world has become much worse than before for safety reasons. He hopes that Nora can temporarily return to the sanctuary or refuge, but Nora opposed this view. She feels that since the world has become very bad, She needs to adapt to the world even more. Lane watched them arguing and hurried forward to mediate, because it was not early. He didn't want to play against Deathclaw in the dark at night. After Ryan repeatedly stated that he could provide protection with magic, Knight finally agreed that everyone could act together. Finally, a knight with experience in service is formed first, and the magical Ryan is behind. The formation that protects Nora in the middle easily killed 2 huge mutant mosquitoes on the road. They came to Concord. As soon as they reached the intersection, they heard a burst of gunfire in the town. Knight heard the sound of the guns change, and signaled everyone to pay attention to concealment. Then slowly touched the place where the gun shot. Just walked for a while, and found that a predator with a gun in the direction of the museum, and another predator stood beside him and looked around. Knight signaled him to go up to solve the problem, so Ryan put him a phantom body curse and an iron armor curse, and then saw a vague transparent shadow touched in the direction of the 2 predators. Soon a spoiler's blood sprang up on his neck, and the stealth effect was destroyed by this action. Another marauder found out that he was about to turn the gun, and Ryan struck his weapon with a disarming spell, then was knocked out by Knight. Knight took the captive back to Ryan's hiding place. After binding, he woke the captive to prepare for questioning. The predator really consisted of unruly scum, and Knight hadn't used his sentence. The predator found out that the situation was not good and immediately cleaned up all the guidance information. Watching that the information was confirmed, Knight resolved the captives neatly. Lane felt cold limbs and numbness. After all, there were so many battles before. He had never fought humans, so he saw some uncomfortableness with the dead. Nora's reaction was more intense, and she began to retort after seeing this scene. After a few minutes, the 2 talents adjusted their emotions, and then rejected Knight's good intention to let them wait here, and decided to come together to rescue the people trapped in the museum. Ryan also picked up a short double-barrel shotgun for the marauder at this time. After all, he didn't use these guns very much before. Shotguns are more suitable for novices. Came to the museum and wiped out several scattered predators. An injured civilian asked them to enter the museum to rescue the civilians inside. After treating the militia with white fresh fragrance, the armed civilian followed with a gun, and he followed with a brutal face and joined the team. After Ryan used life magic to detect, the team easily killed the enemy in the museum. On the top floor, I met the last volunteer, Preston. The person hiding here has a middle-aged woman named Mom Murphy. www.mplnovel.com. When she saw Ryan, she said to him, "Who are you? Why am I not in the past or in the future? See you there?" The others next to him said, "Don't care about her, she has always been like this." But Ryan felt that Mom Murphy might be a real prophet. At least she was right. Under Preston's guidance, Knight went upstairs to check the power armor upstairs, while Ryan went downstairs to take the core of nuclear fusion. Fortunately, the predators in the house have been wiped out. Ryan jumped directly from the patio to the basement with a hook cable. After opening the door with the unlocking spell to take out the nuclear fusion core, he quickly pulled himself upstairs with the hook cable. Later, at the door of the rooftop, I met Knight, who had just arrived here. Ryan gave Knight the core of nuclear fusion, and then came to the rooftop with him. As soon as he went to the rooftop, bullets hit them and splashed a lot of dust. Ryan quickly attached an iron armor spell to the 2 men, and then began to fight back with a shotgun in his hand to fight for Knight's time to wear power armor. After killing the predator on the top of the building opposite, Lane found that he did not have the various stress responses he had imagined. This may be more experienced, and naturally have immunity to various events. After a few minutes of crossfire, Lane successfully prevented the predators from approaching the museum. But also the marauders are getting closer and closer, and the bullets are getting more and more accurate. If it weren't for an armor curse, he felt that he might have been injured long ago. But even so, Ryan also added several alarm spells to himself. When he felt that he might not be able to stop the predators, he finally heard the sound of the electric motor behind him. Power armor started.